chicks, we're your hosts, Leah and Michelle, a little bit late, as fashionably late, I think.
We all just a little
Always a little bit
fashionably
fashionably late at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. British time. Don't know. You always keep telling me, and for some reason I can't seem to remember what it's called. I know you'll tell me in the chat here in a moment. So yesterday in the UK was their Armistice Day.
Yes.
Remembrance Day.
Poland had their march.
Independence.
Yes.
You know, Tommy Robinson was there.
Yes, it's kind of a meeting of the minds there. I told Michelle that you go where you're appreciated.
Exactly.
I think he was there with Jack Prosovic, if I'm not mistaken. So, do you want to go to the UK today first, or we're going to go to Poland?
We're going to Poland.
We're going to Poland's Independence Day march. Now, the big fake news on this is that there was 60,000 white supremacists, white Nazis.
Those Polish Nazis.
What's horrible about calling Polish people Nazis is that they overthrew communism. They fought back against Hitler. It's just quite not fair, actually. Calling them Nazis because they don't want radical Islam is unfair.
Sean says it's Greenwich Mean Time. Thank you. I will remember that.
It's not angry. It's just meantime. All right. So, Poland's march of independence was a great success. Patriotism wins. Tens of thousands of patriots gathered in Poland's capital, Warsaw, today. Well, yesterday. Warsaw.
Here it comes again.
We saw the war. Warsaw. For one of Europe's biggest marches, the festivities were a tribute to the 11th of November, Poland's Independence Day. A lot of things happening on November 11th. We have Armistice Day in the UK. We have Veterans Day in the United States. The slogan for this year's event was, "We want God."
I cannot think of a better slogan.
Earrings are awesome,
so,
by the way.
Can we let them
They're
know?
like it.
A little Resistance Chicks.
Shake them for the
Leah
people.
and Michelle Real Deal. Tell them we went to Kohl's. That's our local cheaper department store.
Yeah.
Leah had a bunch of coupons. We did this late Friday night after we went live with you guys.
Yeah.
We walked out of that store with, I don't even know, like $2,000 worth of merchandise for like $100.
Yeah.
Amongst that were these earrings. I think I ended up getting them for like $1.
Yeah, that's cute.
I got this shirt. You got that shirt.
Yeah, I think it should have been more than discounted because it's
Leah had a bunch of coupons.
Sleeve.
It's not missing a sleeve. That's the style. That's how it's supposed to be.
It should be at least a quarter more off.
Patriot Gallery seems to think that you guys would appreciate if we dressed a little bit more.
We just don't have those kind of clothes.
We're farmers. We're farmers, okay?
We don't go to. When would I wear a shirt with one missing sleeve?
That's a very good question. Very good question. So,
I can't wear things that can't get stained.
You may thank Patriot Gallery.
Because I stain everything.
She does. You wore a white jacket yesterday to go meet up
and I prayed
with some friends.
God.
And I was like, you look so cute. And she's like, yeah, but it's white. And I'm like, yeah, but you'll be okay. I'll protect you. She did fine. All right, so there you go. That's with the earrings.
All right. And the one sleeve shirt here. It's like a Gordon Gartrell from Cosby Show. All right. We want God. That is the best slogan ever. It is
the best slogan ever.
We're going to stop here. We're going to pack up. We're going home because that's all we need to know.
That's all you need to know.
3 words of a Polish religious song that President Trump quoted in July while visiting Warsaw. Trump praised Poland for what he described as the country's defense of Western civilization. So we have a few pictures here I'm going to show you. If it gets any, it's not good. Oh, there we go. We are getting bigger. There we go. Lots of, they love their little fire starters things.
Are those the same thing that we use when you're pulled off on the side of the road like a flare?
Are they flares? I think
are they just flares?
Definitely flares. Yep. So here's another massive crowd here. I'm going to try to make it bigger here. Sometimes if I play it for a second, then it'll keep playing.
Very peaceful looking. They're just waving flags. I love this.
The one thing about the Polish people is there is no country on the planet where people love their country more. And that's just true. I mean, as
it is true. I believe that.
In a whole.
Right.
Like, the amount of people. I mean, in America, you have people burning flags. I don't think there's anybody who burned the flag in Poland. Right? You have people, in America who hate America and hate our past, but they're proud of their heritage. They're proud of who they are. And they're putting out, like we showed on our last episode, Poland is literally has advertisements out
to make more babies,
to breed like rabbits.
Yes.
So they want more Polish people, and I say the Polish people are beautiful
and lovely. We have some Polish viewers with us here today in the chat already. So
we are happy to have you here.
We are happy to have you.
We align with the Polish people, I think, the best. From what I hear from you guys, I get like a really good sense of camaraderie. My spirit goes out to you guys. I love your faith, and
I am proud of your pride in your country.
And I love how you walk that line between not allowing in evil,
right,
and not becoming that evil,
right.
Because in America, we've become that evil. Our leaders have gone into the world, and
that's where political correctness will get you.
The one thing Poland said is we haven't gone and done interventionist wars. We haven't, tried to take down 7 countries in 5 years. So we don't need to be taking in the refugees that you created because we didn't start this war on oil. Polish people would rather go without than go start other wars in other countries.
And if they leave the EU, then they might just have to.
So here's a picture Jack Posovic put up. There's Tommy Robinson here. He says British Armed Forces in Poland here on their National Remembrance Day. And let's see, Europe's mainstream media called this a fascist march. And Voice of Europe, who I follow, if you don't follow them on Twitter, follow them on Twitter. Voice of Europe, and that would be the same one I had up. They said we don't. So I wanted to bring you guys that. It's pretty exciting. There's lots of videos and stuff on.
Here's the thing, guys. If you're a Resistance Chicks viewer, you already know this, but
wait, I like this one. Banner says Polish girls with a banner saying "Be ladies, not feminists."
And that goes. Hang on, let me get my other thing.
Isn't that that kind of just goes to show you who these people are? I love them. I love them all.
They line right up with our founding fathers.
Yes.
Yesterday, a friend of mine got me this shirt for
just too much hair right now.
My birthday. Okay. It says, "If we mean to have heroes, statesmen, and philosophers, we should have learned women." Now,
this is Abigail Smith Adams,
John
Adams' wife.
She wrote this to him in a letter, amongst other things. But the way that shirt came from a feminist website. But what they don't understand is that what she was saying was that in order to have the philosophers, statesmen, and heroes that she was referring to as male, we need to have learned women who will be mothers to raise them.
Right.
All right? It's not, we're going to have women heroes, women philosophers, and women statesmen. Yes, we should have all of those things, but that's not what she meant. So you have to take it in historical context.
Right.
So we have a founding father that has the same sentiment as the Polish people, or founding mother, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I love that. I love that.
These are some pictures. It says, thank God for the unbiased facts, first media exposing the white supremacists of the far right in Poland. And then there's some, looking like Indian, Arab people and some Asian people there. So what's really, if you just hashtag Poland or Poland March, Poland Independence Day, you can get some cool videos and some White Europe 60 Nationalist March on Poland.
60,000.
That would be from The Guardian. We cover the other news. They want to divide.
Right.
Poland is primarily a white country, so white people march in Poland. Yay. There are Nazi, weird, crazy people all over the place, but I don't ever see them like globalists march on world. So here's Tommy Robinson showing British troops footage of the Poland Independence Day march yesterday.
I don't know if you can pull up. There is just a video of Tommy Robinson. Justin Hughes had sent it to me on YouTube. Just a short little clip. It's a 1-minute clip of him there. Now, that video says Tommy Robinson attends an anti-Islam march in Poland. I don't know that it was exactly I don't know, maybe it was. It was kind of. They are making a stance. They're drawing their line in the sand, and they are saying, we are going to keep
I wanted to show
Poland
you this.
Polish.
This is an anti-Nazi, anti-communist sign. So...
But Leah, they are Nazis.
I want to just...
It doesn't make any sense. It literally causes you to scratch your head. What it goes to show is that the people that are hurling these lines have no idea at all of what they are saying.
Right.
It's embarrassing for them. I'm embarrassed for them. Can you pull up that Tommy Robinson video?
Yeah, where is it?
Just on YouTube. Just put Tommy Robinson attends anti-Islam march in Poland.
Is that what it's titled?
Unfortunately, that's what it's titled. Let's see. Aaron says, if the EU has their way, Poland will be majority Arab and African in 15 years. And the Polish people are not going to let that happen. I feel like I can speak for the Polish people and say over my dead body. Like, they just will not let that happen.
I'll show you this way. Now, so far, we've had a run-in with Antifa. Going to make a great video on the Tommy Robinson show. It's funny. And if you want to see what's going on, like in Poland, tomorrow we're going to be interviewing the female Tommy Robinson, who is a 10.
Shadid.
Miriam, I can't say the surname. Miriam Shadid, who is a 10. But yeah.
He calls her the female Tommy Robinson.
In the morning as well. And giving you a rundown of what's happening in Poland. If you want to join us for that, TommyRobinson.com/watch. You will not believe how massive this rally is. You will also not believe how ridiculous Antifa looked earlier when we clashed them. We will miss.
So you guys can check that out, what Tommy saw when he was there. But he was there, and I'm really proud of him for going. So that's fantastic.
All right, so moving on to Armistice Day here in the UK. So we are celebrating the all four home nations, a memorial to, let me see, this video is going to play. Service to unite people across all four home nations is being planned to mark the centenary of Armistice Day next year. Let's see. Here we go. I'm going to play this video. It's like, I don't even want to whisper. 11 on 11/11. I'm not even kidding you. That's the thing.
Apparently, the Queen normally lays a wreath, but instead she watched from the Foreign Office's balcony.
The Scottish Commemorations Panel is the driving force behind plans for the whole of the United Kingdom to mark the 100 years since the end of the Second World War, and that would be next year, in 2018. Everybody's pretty excited about this. So, I want to show you some pictures. Poppies everywhere. Now, we have a poppy... my grandmother was part of the and so she'd sit there and make her little poppies. Ours look different than yours.
Yours are way better.
Ours roll up and then they have a little piece of paper, and we were poppy girls. We have 7 poppies. So, yes. All right, so here's some breathtaking photos show the end of World War I.
Wow.
I hate war. War is like awful.
And this, I have to tell you that to me, this is a good time to point out this is why we don't believe in war. This is why Leah and I are not neocons. This is why we don't believe in America going in and just...
If you're going to fight, it has to be something worth losing everyone's life over.
Right. I mean, during World War II, whether you were in the UK, Poland, the United States, or whatever, you knew someone that died.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
You knew multiple people that
it affected
died.
Everybody all over the world. War,
did.
right? But what we have now today, guys, are like multiple little mini, like partly world wars. This part of the world's fighting here, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Saudi war-making machine and the U.S. war-making machine in a minute, and I want you to stick around for that. We're going to actually kind of end with that, so we're going to go.
Do you have any video footage?
Remembrance Day.
The Remembrance Day at all?
I am going to go to this Breitbart article, and we'll see what it contains.
Okay.
Prince Charles has led Britain's annual Remembrance Sunday ceremony for war dead, taking the role held for more than 6 decades by his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. The 91-year-old Queen watched the service at London's Cenotaph Memorial from a balcony alongside her 96-year-old husband, Prince Philip. The monarch, who is reducing her public duties after 65 years on the throne, had asked her son to lay a wreath of poppies on her behalf. Britain's political leaders and dignitaries from the Commonwealth also attended the ceremony in central London, laying wreaths on the Portland stone monument inscribed with the words, "The Glorious Dead." Thousands of military personnel, veterans, and members of the public gathered on a cold, sunny day to honor those killed in World War I and subsequent conflicts. Farage on Remembrance Day. Here we go. Embracing our history, nation will bring us back the society we once had. That's really pretty. Where's this picture taken? You guys have mountains like that? No, I just haven't. That's really cool. Brexit leader Nigel Farage told Breitbart News Daily listeners that visiting historic battlefields will help them understand the sacrifices their countries made as the US, Britain, and Europe began to re-embrace the nation state. Speaking to host Breitbart Chief Executive Steve Bannon and Raheem Kassim on the 99th anniversary of Armistice Day, which coincides with American Veterans Day, the World War I French battlefields aficionado remarked on how the Great War ushered in a new world, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the rise of communism, and a century of bloody conflict. World War I was the first time ordinary people volunteered in their millions to go fight in the British Army. It's a war involving all citizens.
You want to play a little clip there? That looks. I mean, it's just an audio.
Now we're honored to have our colleague from the United Kingdom, Nigel Farage. Nigel, you one of the things when I first met you, it was amazing that you've got an interest in World War I, as I do. But man, you're one of the I think one of the best experts on the war and its implication.
Yes, I mean, Steve, for the last 30 years, I've been travelling the Western Front in France. I've even, taken coach parties and lectured over there. I see it as being a pivot, really, between the old world and the new world. It was the First World War that led to the Soviet communist experiment. It saw massive changes, things like the Ottoman Empire disappearing. But what is also fascinating to me about that war, from a British perspective, is we'd always relied on naval power. Ever since the Battle of Trafalgar, Britain ruled the waves, Britannia ruled the waves, as we sing in our patriotic songs, and we'd always relied on a very small professional army, and we were never afraid to hire mercenaries from anywhere else in the world to fight our battles. But World War I was the first time that ordinary people volunteered in their millions to go and fight in the British Army, my grandfather from my father's side being one of them. So it's the fact that here we have a war that involves all of the citizens, and I guess that's what makes it fascinating. And it was a hell of a conflict. I mean, we lost, Britain and her empire, we had about 1 million killed in action, but on top of that, nearly 2 million very seriously wounded, and by that I mean blinded, loss of limbs, that kind of thing. So the sheer level of cost was absolutely huge.
How did this is? But let me ask you, how do you? The war was so horrific, and they used gas, chemical weapons. It was the wounded turned out to be worse than had worse in front of them than the dead. But how did that Victorian society, in the great houses, the great aristocrats, right, the great empires of Europe, how did they unleash such complete and total barbarity coming out of the Victorian era?
Well, that is the extraordinary thing, isn't it? I mean, Germany, whichever way you look at Germany, and okay, we can look at World War I and World War II and think bad things, but actually, in terms of art, literature, culture, I mean, Germany was one of the foremost, best educated, electorates in the whole of the world. And yet, as you say, we were reduced to total and utter barbarity. I think in many ways there is often a very fine line between a society that functions well and gets on with its neighbours, and one that disintegrates and falls to pieces. The one thing I will say about the values that people had 100 years ago is that I think in many ways they were better people than we are today. I think they had values. They had quite a strong fundamental Christian belief that went right throughout society. They believed in country. They believed in family. And they weren't, well, I say they weren't afraid. They were prepared to make sacrifices to defend the nation and to defend their people. And I'm not quite sure, 100 years on, that we're quite the same society, sadly.
How are we to get that back? If we want that back, if we want to have those ideals and have those values reinfused in culture and society, how do we do that? How do we what we lost in 20? I was saying this before he came on, is that the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, right when the guns went silent, they thought that was the end of the war to end all wars. What it was the end of the opening act of the most barbaric century in mankind's history. The worst was yet to come. There was another, of the 60 million they lost in World War I, we lost, 250 million in the entire century on wars, conflicts, famine, etc. How do you get those values back, Nigel?
Yeah, well, just quickly, Steve, let me say this. That they thought it was the war to end all wars, the 11th day of the 11th hour, the 11th month. But one man realized that it wasn't the war to end all wars, and his name was General Jack Pershing. He was in charge of the American contingent on the Western Front and was a very successful general. And Raheem mentioned earlier, I go all around America and I find people who know everything about the Revolution, 1812, Iwo Jima, Vietnam. They know all about this, and Americans know hardly anything about World War I. Jack Pershing, in his diary on the 11th of November, today, 99 years ago, Jack Pershing wrote in his diary, I fear we're making a terrible mistake. We shouldn't allow an armistice. We should fight the Germans until they surrender unconditionally. He said, I fear we'll all be back here in 20 years. And boy, wasn't he right. So all Americans, when you come to Europe, yeah, I know you visit Big Ben and you go over and visit Omaha Beach and all of that, but there's a whole load of places in the middle of France, places like Belleau Wood, where the U.S. Marine Corps fought the most amazing, historic, successful but costly battle. So I just say to Americans, go and see these places, go and understand what your country did in 1918, because without America, Germany would have won. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. Steve, I think in answer to your question, that 2016 marks the beginning of something quite remarkable. 2016 is the year that the nation state made a comeback. It was the year that people said, you know what, we're not prepared to live with globalism, with liberalism, with being embarrassed about our culture, our heritage, who we are as a people. Brexit, Trump, and you're seeing that same wave now going through Europe with elections in Austria, elections in the Czech Republic. There is definitely, without any shadow of a doubt, there is a reawakening in the concept of nation. And if you believe in a nation, then you believe in belonging to something. So I do think we're headed back in the right direction, but I'll be honest, there's a long way to go.
Nigel, I just want to jump in.
Well said. So that was unbelievably awesome. And
you have Steve Bannon interviewing Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
How does it get better than that?
Well, it does get better because you have these two men, and Nigel Farage isn't necessarily a go-get-em evangelistic preacher at the front of a pulpit.
True.
But he is the great sermonizer. And I have spoken with so many friends on this that we have people like Paul Joseph Watson. The man swears like a sailor. Yeah. But he stands for Christians and the fundamental Christian values that bring people together like glue. when you take God out, you take family out, which what happened in this 100 years of bloody conflict and starvation. I do not have time to fight on Twitter. I say things on Twitter, but someone came back and said, prove that 100 million communism killed 100 million people. And I said, read a book. And they said, which book? They all say this or this. I'm like, I don't have time for you, Jack. But I have time for you. I have time to explain to you. This is what we do all the time. When the left-wing alt crazy media, I'm going to call it alt media because it's not real journalism. It's not real. It's fake. It goes on to push a Nazism type, Nazis are everywhere type thing. Not only does it take away from the lives of the people lost, as Nigel Farage was saying, not only were millions of people killed, families were broken up. Now think about this.
Right.
Men died in war. These men, millions upon millions upon millions of men died.
Right.
So what you have is not only just husbands and brothers, you have potential spouses. And I don't want to offend anybody who made it through the war or who didn't fight in the war, but usually the best and the brightest go and fight.
Right.
So if those men are not reproducing, they're not going to be instilling those same values of love your wife and your children and your country so much that you would lay down your life for them. I have goosebumps right now. We need another generation because their grandfathers and great-grandfathers, they died. Their potential fathers and grandfathers died.
Right.
God doesn't want war. These were great men who died, who would have, I guarantee you, raised men who were like them.
Right.
But how have we gone from a generation of men who will sit in freezing cold trenches that they dig out because the Germans are gassing the Jews. Americans, they say that we only got into the war because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, but Americans flooded into Europe. What to do to save lives?
Right.
Other people's lives. They gave their lives to save other people's lives.
Right.
And those men, they didn't come back. Many of them didn't come back to produce children.
Right.
And so you see, you go from 1944 men laying down their lives and for their family to 1965. We have
peace,
Hugh Hefner,
love, sex, free love, whatever.
And they don't even, and no families whatsoever.
Right.
You've gone from the tightest bonds that can keep a country and a nation together to literally a bomb exploding and dynamite going off, and you have people whose minds are so lost as to say things like, oh, but yeah, it's consensual and you can do this and you can do that, and people don't realize, like the feminists who we showed on our video the other night, they laugh. They're old now. They're in their 70s and 80s, these women, and they're laughing and saying, we didn't think about what we do about raising children.
Right.
Because families, the reason you have marriage between a man and a woman, okay, is because the family is a cornerstone to society. Why is that? Because it takes a man and a woman to create a child, but it also takes a man and a woman to raise a child properly under the right circumstances.
Right.
Okay? So the best and the brightest, unfortunately, many of them passed away.
Right.
So when when I'm remembering, that's what I'm thinking of. And then you have the same year, 1918, the Armistice laid down. That general, I forget his name already. We should all remember him. He said, remember, they'll be back 20 years. What happened in 1917 and 1918? You had the Bolsheviks taking over.
Right.
You had communism Russian, and communism was godless. You had Russia literally had these Bolsheviks, a small minority of people, sucked God completely like a vacuum out of this entire continent. And then not only that, they went in and they spread their disease of godlessness into Vietnam, which is how we got stuck in our war wasn't righteous in Vietnam. Should we have fought communism? Yes. And then North Korea, and then you had Cuba, and then you had, Chairman Mao and China. You have this godless vacuum sucking God and society and families literally apart.
Right. So before you get out everywhere, it all boils down to one comment here that I'm going to give from Christopher. World War I was an attempt to set up the first global government in the League of Nations, which failed miserably. World War II was the second attempt and brought us the United Nations, which was more successful. Right. So it boils down to this. It comes back to the creature of Jekyll Isle.
Absolutely.
When the bankers sought together,
bankers need wars, dude.
They had to have wars, and the Federal Reserve in the United States. There were other central banks in other countries.
Wait, I have to tell you something because it just popped in my head before I forget.
Okay.
In those papers that you guys, you probably haven't been with us a long time, so I'm going to give you a little drop down. Norman Dodd was a senator in the 60s he went into looking into the Ford and Carnegie Foundation, their tax exempt status. He sent a woman to put on dictaphone the Rockefeller and Ford Foundation notes from this time period, World War I. What he found and what has not been out amongst the world is on the papers. It says they literally told the president at the time, do not end World War I too quickly. It's working to our benefit. Do you know how many the men who stayed here, the big bankers, they profit off of war.
They produce it.
Right.
So that was, I wanted to wrap all that up because you're mentioning all these wars, you're mentioning all of this stuff. And it really does boil down to
all these wars, all this stuff.
All these wars, all this stuff. Okay, it's the epitome of resistance chicks, which comes back to the Federal Reserve, the globalist agenda.
Yes.
And so, yes, we do need to be proud of what our nations did and our people, and the people, I should say, that went and gave their lives and laid down their lives
but
to
while
save
they were
others.
Doing that, a wicked silent enemy came through in the back door.
Well, no. Yes, absolutely. But my point was that I hate to say it because it almost takes away from it, but I don't want it to. It was an engineered war. It never needed to happen. Okay? Hitler was a puppet. He was a patsy. All right? Yes, he was a criminal mastermind, but he had somebody pulling his strings. Absolutely. So I think a lot of times we look at these different wars and we think, oh, it's just something, that popped up. It was some crazy person and we had to go fight them. No, there was a group of people that literally sat down at a chess table and said, we are going to maneuver this so that all of these nations, I think it's in the corner over there, all of these nations fight so that we can make money, so that we can rearrange power and things like that. So all of the men and women that died in World War I, in World War II, in every war since these bankers got together, they have all died because the globalists engineered it and did it on purpose.
So you want to hold this up real quick?
Yes.
It's not a conspiracy theory. If it's the truth, that's what we say around here. We are seeing a lot of this Nazi symbol, and actually, if you guys remember So What, the German guy with like the infectious laugh?
He's amazing.
He is so funny. He shared something that was funny, and it was how liberals can't draw a swastika right. So like a lot of these people are doing a lot of fake hate crimes, and they can't even draw the swastika right. So it was a primer on how to correctly draw a swastika.
Oh my gosh!
It was satire. It was hilarious. But my point is that when we're talking about Nazism, we're hearing a lot about it because I think that the globalists are they know they're going down, and so they're trying to wave this flag over and over again because remember, this was the enemy. This was our enemy. We pointed, we put it all on this guy. Remember, they're back. The Nazis are back. We're like, no. We know the wizard behind the screen. Right. We know that you're the globalists, that you started these wars. And they're like, no, it was Nazis, it was Hitler, it was Nazis, it was Hitler, it was Nazis, it was Hitler. No, you're pulling the strings.
Before you finish on what you want to, there have been so many amazing comments in here. I want to get to at least a few of them.
Do it.
Before we move on.
Do it.
let's see, because I lost a bunch of them, so now I'm just going to go completely random here on you guys. World War One put the international finance machine into place, and World War II cemented the dollar as king. It's all about money. That's from Otto.
Thank you, Otto.
Let's see. Note, a lot of the guys giving Roman salutes in America are doing it as a way to spit in the face of the left, who calls everyone right or Karl Marx Nazis.
Sometimes they're just doing it as satire. I get it.
Right. Matthew says, men would run into impossible situations to defend their country. Now so many complain the country doesn't give them enough.
Absolutely. I'm going to get to that about the, in the UK, the Syrian refugees. They're like, I thought that the houses would be bigger.
Stop it.
And I'd get a little bit more money and some more stuff. This isn't exactly the UK. I thought we were going to get more stuff.
Right. Will says, now the false flags and the fake wars for control have to stop. Iran is coming. We have to refuse it. Hashtag we do not consent. Let's see. Mark says, they got into wars because the global bankers promoted the wars on both sides.
Both sides.
Right.
Absolutely.
The Matrix has you says, strong men make good times, strong men make good times make weak men make bad times, and bad times make strong men. So we're hoping that the bad time that we're in right now is raising up a newer generation. We do have the social justice warriors, but we have others on the other side where the young people are sick and tired and they are rising up.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Let me get to a couple more here. Aaron says, my uncle, Vietnam vet, told me that America would have been better off if we sided with Germany. General George Patton wanted to ally with the Germans to go after the communist Bolsheviks at Event, Maine. Let's see. Britt Baza says, I was fortunate that both my granddads came back from World War II. One was in the front line medical corps and the other was a frontline soldier. Sounds like God was on your grandparents for sure. Richard says the United States could not side with Germany because they were allies with Japan, who bombed Pearl Harbor. Let's see. Aaron says, I had many relatives on both sides who fought in both World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and lucky none of them died. That's a miracle. That's fantastic. Phyllis says, daycare was something happening in communist Russia when I was a child, and my mother talked about how this was dangerous, yet when my own sisters were using daycare, she was just fine with it. Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. That's another kind of resistance chicks thing that we focus on a lot.
What they decided, communist Russia, they did things in a harsh way, whereas the devil learned his, the secret to come to America and put a little happy face on it.
Right. So Horatio says George W. Bush's grandfather, Prescott Bush, was on the Nazi side even before World War II.
There's a lot about Prescott Bush. They made millions.
That's
where the Bush finance dynasty came from.
Right. All right. So I know there were a bunch in there that I missed, guys, but I just wanted to skim over because today you guys are putting excellent comments in the chat. And as we always tell you at the end of our video, I'll tell you now, if I didn't get to a comment, copy it, put it somewhere, and then when the video processes, put it in the official comment section, please.
So while we're still in Britain, in our news segment here, Farage reveals how he will lead Brexit frontline if establishment botches the divorce deal. I won't make a joke about Nigel Farage and divorce deals. Sometimes you just do. Sorry, not politically correct.
But you know what? That leaves him open to get some amazing catch.
Hopefully,
can I say that?
A Brexiter.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage has revealed how he will stick around the European Parliament even after the official leaving date of Brexit if the government failed to properly leave the bloc. Let's play the short clip right here.
Arguments now being made are, well,
you turn up a little bit.
If there is a transition, there needs to be an MEP voice from Britain here during that period, and they could be non-voting, they could be, extra members of the European Parliament, honorary members of the European Parliament, with salaries, but without voting rights. I can't even envisage myself doing it. But if they really do fudge this, and if the British Parliament does betray the will of the people, and if effectively we don't Brexit before the next set of European elections, and we have to contest the next European elections, I will be there in the front line fighting those elections, and I will give them the establishment in Britain a result they can't even bear to look at.
Whoa.
Those are fighting words.
Great.
What is this?
Night hasn't even begun, guys.
Awesome. Okay, so the arch Brexiteer has promised to take Britain. I mean, it's the Express UK. Seriously,
Okay,
crazy
all right.
stories on the right side here all the time. You just gotta ignore them. The arch Brexiteer has promised to take the fight to the establishment of the talks between the EU and the government, stitch up Brexit, and betray the people's will. It was music to my ears. He said fudge. You know, you can say that if you met something up. He fudged it. Why not? It makes so much more sense to me.
And he's a Brit too.
I like it, yes. Nigel Farage told Sky News that if we're going to create a list of words you can use instead of
The F-bomb.
fudge is a good one.
Fudge.
Stitch up. He stitched. It's, yep. So blah, 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 blah. This comes as Brexiteers demand that UK have a place in the European Parliament during any transition deal to hold the establishment's feet to the fire. Mr. Farage told Sky News, the argument some people are making around the world lately is that if there is a transition period that needs... Oh, yeah, we talked about that. I thought there might be some more. So he's smiling, Mr. Juncker. Yes. He said the MEP also attacked the EU for demanding Britain pay up for European Parliament pension fund in the divorce bill, but refused to pay British MEPs transition payments. A senior European Union source told Sky News that these payments or reduce redundancy money for MEPs when they stand down or lose their seats will be paid to Britain's 73 MEPs. But the same source added that Brussels will not pay for it, and instead this will be added to the Brexit bill. This divorce bill is long and convoluted, and
You know what? Next time you all enter into something like this, get a prenup.
yes. So
Then you know exactly how it's supposed to divide at the end.
yes. All right. So
Hang on, though. I want to
No.
repeat what he had said. That if the government does fudge it, he will give the establishment a result which they can't even bear to look at.
yes. Go, Nigel. We love you.
Go, Nigel.
All right, we're going to move on. I think we're moving on to...
Something. Geez, there's been so many comments here. I am so
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead to that.
I love you guys have awesome comments today.
I had to bring up my mug. This is the first time I actually put tea in it.
I know. You actually used Nigel. You're
decided-
drinking out of Nigel's face
I know.
for the first time. We can thank Lee for that. We haven't heard from him in a while. But let's see. If anyone ever comes to England, then please look up the Stowe Marie's World War I Aerodome in Essex. It is a living museum and is the world's only complete and intact surviving World War I Aerodome. I did not know that. Thank you for that, Britt. So maybe it's a good time to bomb Germany, the worst enemy of all of Europe. Here's the thing. There are good people there. If there was some way we could just like put all the bad guys into one room. All right.
Which is why
I don't want to sound like Madonna. I've not thought an awful lot about blowing up Angela Merkel or whatever, but they need to be arrested. Okay? They
There
just need
are
to be
ways,
arrested.
and we're really excited about this because there are ways to actually get out. We're kind of getting out of the bloody transitions, right? To vote your way out.
Right.
Vote your way out. We've seen France try to make some headway. We followed Geert Wilders in the
He gave it
Netherlands.
a good go. I was pretty hopeful.
We see Catalonia breaking away a little bit from Spain. We're not exactly sure of the results of that, but it's definitely a blow to the European Union for
Right.
sure. And that is actually what I'm bringing us to right now.
One more comment. JB Max
Yeah.
says, prior to World War I, many were homeschooled, churched, and taught civics.
Yes.
World War I in Korea continued civics, church, and family. Then we started the draft and dropped civics and liberals from the 60s on.
And World War II brought in the women. The women had to go to work.
Right.
Okay, so
Moving on. Now you may move on.
we're getting close to an Italy exit.
It'll exit. It'll exit.
We will never be your slaves! Italy in crisis as thousands demand exit from EU mafia. Thousands of protesters take to the streets to demand Italy leaves the EU immediately, with March slogans labeling the European bloc a mafia. Thousands of anti-EU protesters voiced their fury at Brussels yesterday in one of the largest ever demonstrations against the European bloc to take place in Italy. Sorry, that was my whole attempt. The scale of the protest shocked police officers and even prompted the local U.S. embassy to issue a security threat, urging warning up to 10,000 people in the streets. Among the urgent demands of the young protesters was an immediate Italian exit from the EU, as well as a departure from the Eurozone. This follows polls yesterday that will alarm officials in Brussels, as Euroscepticism remains on the rise in the country and the anti-EU parties resurgent here. The large-scale protest organized by more than 40 social and political groups voiced opposition to Brussels, as well as the current national government, led by Eurostop political movement. The march had to be delayed for an hour yesterday morning following higher than expected turnout. Slogans chanted by the crowd included, "Break the European Union and the Euro cage," and "No to EU mafia." This follows a widespread general strike on Friday in Italy, which was orchestrated by key trade unions. So, nations are putting the EU in danger. Patriot Gallery watched a video that she wanted me to look at, and I watched showing that Austria so far has come the closest.
Yes. To
breaking away. And
do we have any Austrian viewers here today? Leave it in the chat section.
Okay, so I have another article. We're still in Italy. EU nightmare as Italy's Eurosceptic party soar in polls while Renzi plummets. Italy's centre-right are seeing a resurgence in the polls ahead of next year's general election, plunging the country's continued membership of the European Union into doubt. Former Prime Minister Matthew Renzi, leader of the ruling center-left Democratic Party, has admitted there is a lot of work to do after local elections in Sicily revealed a rapid decline in popularity. The center-right, led by former Prime Minister and Forza Italia boss Silvio Berlusconi,
good job,
as well as the head of the Northern League, Matteo Salvini, saw victory in Sicily as a great result ahead of next year's elections, and the populist Five-Star Movement second place finish suggests Euroscepticism remains rife in southern Italy. Meanwhile, that was a little bit of a Swedish accent there.
No, that was good.
Meanwhile, an IPSOS poll held after the Sicilian election put the populist Five-Star Movement in pole position with 29.3% of the vote, compared with just 24.3% of the vote for the ruling PD party. Despite a fall in the number of migrants arriving at Italy's shores and an upturn in economic fortunes, the PD party appeared to be facing a struggle to hang on to power, with elections due to be held before May 2018. The EU has good reason to fear a collapse of the ruling party. The PD is considerably more pro-European than any of their rivals, while MS5 and the Northern League have both questioned Italy's continued membership of the Euro. Speaking after the regional elections in Italy, Mr. Renzi said, "It's clear we have a lot of ground to make up, and we must achieve this among slices of the population that are either disappointed or undecided or abstaining, and there are many." So I wanted to bring that to you. Here is Italy in crisis from 2017. Obviously, some nun is battered here.
We think we showed that.
That's the earthquake.
At the time, yeah.
That's an earthquake. So...
Your Italian accent kind of sounds like the Count on Sesame Street.
Oh, that's awesome.
To me.
Okay. So, while we're here in Italy, I think I should go on to Spain, because Spain is next to Italy, right? So, Spain, Catalonia, Spain, Spanish.
So,
Spanish.
Milos says, I am in Germany now. Germans are good people. Who are very hardworking, but there is a big media blockage and censorship, and we have found that from our German viewers.
Well, so what? We can't even tell you what his name is, because he would most likely be put in jail for saying the exactly what we say.
And we don't plug his channel enough. You guys need to go to VidMe. It's just so what?
Vid.me.
Now, he does curse like a sailor. Maybe even a little bit more than a sailor, but when he covered our footage the other day, he's apologetic when he curses.
Yes.
When in reference to us, so we appreciate that. But for those of you that it doesn't bother, many of you it does not, go and subscribe to his channel, because he is really fun, puts out a lot of good information, and he gives you a German opinion, a sane one, which I absolutely love.
Where is he?
It's just so what?
So what? Where are you, buddy? Well, you could. He's there. We watch him. Patriot Guy can help me find him. Okay, so... All right, so we're going to go to Catalonia.
Well, he did a video
you can bring
on
him up,
ours
maybe
the other day.
Drop up his thing.
I will drop the link to his channel.
Please do.
In the description.
Thank you.
But when we were on InfoWars, he kind of broke it down for a little bit. That was really fun. Somebody did a whole cartoon of him.
We'll have to do that because it is really funny.
Okay.
Somebody put his little character to a cartoon. It's hilarious.
Right.
Okay. Speaking of caricatures, EU became a caricature of its founding values, says a former Catalonian leader. A bunch of people marched, like almost 1 million people, to protest against the arrest of the Catalonian leader. So, kind of a huge deal going on right now in Catalonia. Sacked Catalan leader Charles Puigdemont has lashed out against the European Union over its response to the Catalan crisis, in which Brussels sided with Madrid in suppressing the independence drive of the region. Puigdemont criticized the EU as a caricature of what Europe is and of what we want Europe to be, claiming there is no will to help solve the politics of the conflict. Catalonia staged a regional independence referendum, we know this, on October 1st, and then police cracked down and things went crazy. I want to show you here, Julian Assange tweeted this out. This is the protest of about 1 million people calling for Spain to release Catalan political prisoners. Puigdemont. That is huge. Are you seeing this?
It's massive.
Leave me business. We're not messing around, guys. It's a real deal.
Did you say that Spain was next to Italy?
It's close.
Horatio messaged and said it is most certainly not close to Italy.
It's close. It is close. We have the United States. It's close. Okay? All right. Bring up a map.
I'm going to go with Horatio on this one.
All right.
Not
we think Spain and Italy and America, they're like really like the same. Okay. I'm sorry.
I want to know how far apart they really are, though. Because close, like, I would say 500-600 miles is close. Are they 500 or 600 miles? Like, how far apart are they? I'm just asking. Are you looking it up right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Do like a
Come on! They're close. Italy, France, Spain. There's the Tyrrhenian Sea.
I have to agree with
Portugal.
Leah.
I mean, to us, they're like
from an American standpoint, they're close.
They're right next to each other. This right here is just some water. They're right next to each other.
It's just some water.
They could swim.
Stop it.
This right here. Okay, this is all close. This is all in all the books we read. Spain and Italy. It's like a little take your little armada. Spain.
He says you'd be disappointed if you had to walk it. Put it that way.
I'm not walking. I'm taking a boat. Jeez. Okay.
Carry on.
EU on the brink. Hundreds of thousands march in Catalonia to demand the release of political prisoners. 750,000, which I showed you this, I'm going to continue, of 1 million Catalans have marched to demand the release of local politicians arrested for their role in the drive for independence. Spain's central government has dissolved the Catalan parliament, dismissed the Catalan government, and imposed direct rule following the region's unilateral declaration of independence on October 27th. This followed a self-determination referendum which the Spanish authorities deemed illegal and attempted to shut down violently with the blessings of the European Union's ruling bodies. Not over yet. This is from today.
Wow.
Somebody posted this today. Yep.
Here's the thing. I don't think that, I know certainly in America, maybe you guys in Europe are a little bit more in touch with it, but there are so many things, almost revolutionary type things, that are going on all over the world, and we live in our little box.
Yeah. We've never lived in a time quite like this.
It doesn't really hit home, especially for Americans, that this is happening.
Right.
All over the world.
Yeah, this isn't like, oh, Boris... No, I'm going to say it wrong. I always get it mixed up.
Which one?
Maddie always corrects me. I was going to say Boris.
There's Boris Yeltsin.
No, it was the other guy. Tear down this wall. Sorry.
Mr. Gorbachev.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I'm good for something.
Anyways, we don't live in the communist regime of trying to tear down just not with all eyes on Russia, right? This is all over the world. We have people saying, no to the European Union. No.
Hey, Ma, turn the volume down. She's got us on speakers out there.
That's really funny.
I'm hearing ourselves back.
So, Charles Puigdemont, Catalonia's ex-president or president in exile, depending on your point of view, had given some indication that he would ignore Madrid's attempts to terminate his administration and remain in his post, but fled to Brussels, Belgium, when the authorities closed in. Several of those who remained behind have been arrested to face charges of rebellion and sedition, with 8 former Catalan government ministers and the leaders of the Catalan National Assembly jailed. There's a lot of that jailing going on in Saudi Arabia right now. Protesters say the detainees are political prisoners and flooded the Avenue Marina to hear speeches from their family members and demanded their release.
What does Nigel say about it?
Not a dicky bird. He didn't say a thing, and yet I've sat there.
He's talking about Jan. He says Nigel Farage absolutely lets rip at Jean-Claude Juncker's response to the police brutality, and this was this was October 3rd.
Oh, that's right.
That chamber, when, despite the fact it wasn't necessarily on agenda, he's criticised the Hungarian government for refusing to accept migrant quotas. He's condemned the Poles for appointing new judges in a way he doesn't approve of. And can you imagine if the British police beat up a couple of anti-Brexit demonstrators with the EU flag, or if they'd stopped in 2014 one or two of those thuggish types from the SNP who wanted Scottish separation? Can you imagine? Gosh, we'd be hauled straight before the European Court of Human Rights and we would be declared to be behaving like a third world country. And yet, in the case of Catalonia, Mr. Juncker tries to go through the whole debate this morning, completely ignoring it.
Here's the thing, and this goes back to, do you remember recently when that man threw those, what were they, German flags at Trump, and you called him a fascist or whatever, and this was going around, and I've stolen it because it's so true. If you can yell flags at a president and call it, and say, I live in a fascist country, and not get shot, fascist?
No, say, if you can do what?
If you can throw flags, what did I say?
Yell flags.
Did I say yell flags? Nancy.
Flags!
There's a flag on them. They're flags. You're all a bunch of flags. No, did I just say that? I did. Okay, but there you go. Flag on the field. If you can throw flags at a president and yell that you live in a fascist country or they are fascist and you don't get shot or beat up or jailed, then you don't live in a fascist country. Now, let's go to Catalonia, where they are saying, we live in a fascist country, we want to separate, and then they get beat up, then it might be a little bit of an indicator. Just saying.
They're mob bosses. They're...
Now, I know that I think he had to leave, but he's very staunch that...
Catalonia should not leave.
Right, because they're going to become communist if they do. I don't care. What they do is what they do. It's between those two...
So, it's kind of like, seriously,
battling,
though, if the communists want to leave the
parties.
Nazis... And the Nazis are acting more like, who's the bigger thug right here?
Right.
And right now the EU is a bigger thug. So, speaking of
Bingo.
EU, we're going to go to Hungary.
Look at that hideous smile, huh?
Doesn't he just look like the most
devil.
wicked person
devil.
ever? I mean, like, you just see it in his face.
It is. It is.
He
very
is
evil.
the emperor. I'm going to bring that up. I see.
Oh my god.
I want you...
I feel like I should just go to the comments, but I haven't been really keeping track.
I bet somebody's already put it in. Yeah, the people already have done this. They're the same person. Look.
They really are. Yeah, he totally looks just like that guy. I mean, I think he might have played that part, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah. He had to. That's from Star Wars. If you guys don't know that, then I can't help you. I just cannot. Iran is building nuclear weapons to give to terrorists. That's just a random comment from John Petter. So, yes, I agree with you there. Let's see. Saudi Arabia has got an American and British trained army and British and American weapons too. Very true. Thank you, Britt Baza. We're going to get to that.
Okay, so Washington Post promotes accusations Hungary is hate-mongering against George Soros, but the caveat here is that
Caveat?
the caveat here is that it was a Soros-funded charity that they quoted.
No.
Can you do that? The Washington Post is promoting accusations the Hungarian government is hate-mongering against billionaire Open Soros, Open Borders activist George Soros, an accusation made by a group of Soros that Soros is funding. So this here it boggles my mind that the Washington Post is evil. They're the ones who dropped the Trump thing. They're dropping they dropped this Roy Moore thing, which is unraveling by the second.
Right.
The Washington Post is owned by Bezos, who owns Amazon. It's hard to keep everybody's name straight,
Who
right?
also is being funded by none other than George Soros.
Right. So in an article titled Hungary accused Washington Post and the New York Times, and they all are just mouthpieces for the globalist elite.
Do you think George Soros is still alive?
Yes.
I mean,
do.
what if he's like dead and somebody is still trying to carry on like he's alive?
Okay, so in an article titled Hungary accused of hate-mongering and national survey targeting George Soros, the left-wing media outlet reports that the government in Budapest has come under fire from human rights groups and European Union officials who say they are engaging in hate-mongering propaganda. Not until roughly halfway through the article does the Washington Post writer confess that the source of this accusation is a non-governmental organization, a NGO, which is partly funded by George Soros' Open Society Foundations. And this is the only so-called civil society organization
So you think they'll
which
keep
the
getting
article
funding?
cites as complaining about the national consultation.
You think they'll keep getting funding?
Yeah,
From the George Soros Open Society Foundation?
just crazy, man. In terms of the European Union officials, the WAPO cites no one at all, but instead quotes European Parliament member and former Prime Minister of Belgium, Guy Verhofstadt. The controversial but influential politician has denounced the national consultation and claims to have persuaded the president of the European Parliament to summon the Hungarian ambassador and demand it is stopped. Dr. Zoltán Kovács, sorry, I'm not sure about your enunciations, senior spokesman for Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, has already responded to Verhofstadt at length in a very frank open letter, which points out that the Belgian was named on a leaked list of European politicians who Soros considers reliable allies. Now, Patriot Gallery was wanted me to kind of let you know that there is a list. So here it is, right here, a list.
Of the benefactors.
Hungary warns Europe is in danger as leak reveals Soros network's list of reliable allies in EU Parliament. Leaked documents listing hundreds of EU Parliament members that George Soros network considers reliable allies should raise alarm bells across Europe, says Hungary. The list, which includes 226 MEPs. What percentage is that of
I was
of
just
the
going to
parliament?
ask the same question.
Including, you can Google, how many MEPs
I
are there?
got this.
Including former
We already have the
president and
answer.
the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, 7 vice presidents, and a number of committee heads, coordinators, and quaestors was circulated within...
751.
Yeah,
751, so it's 1/3.
about a third. 7 vice presidents and a number of the committee... Okay, there.
I got it. We just said it.
They want her address.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
I got it. I'm on it.
Maia.
We're getting to it.
Maia, with all the awesomeness. Order her stuff, you guys. I kind of been borrowing her deodorant. I really
She
like
stole my thing.
Borrow.
Stole.
Borrow.
Stole.
It's
I'm going to have
on
to
the
go and
counter.
buy my own.
Share and borrow. That's what sisters do.
It's all right. You know what? As a Christian, I prefer you
Stop
to
it.
myself.
All right. If this report threatened only Hungary, it wouldn't be a problem. The Hungarian government has grown accustomed to countering the groundless accusations and false information used by the proponents of this radical open society agenda. But this time, it's not just Hungary. It endangers the future of Europe as a whole, warned Dr. Zoltán Kovács. That's Hungary's Secretary of State for Public Diplomacy. The government spokesman questioned how Soros was able to meet with the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, with no transparent agenda for his closed-door meeting. How is it that Soros, who's not elected by anybody, gets a closed-door meeting with Jean-Claude Juncker? Can y'all get a closed-door meeting? No, unless you're a billionaire giving tons of money to
Right.
fund all of these The only way the European Union is still together today is because of funding from people like George Soros and like this whole open societies crazy thing and the whole immigration thing. It's insane. He pushed it. George Soros pushed the immigration. He said immigration, and so he's behind, and the global elites are behind the wars, flooding Europe with all these migrants. The government spokesman questioned how Soros was able to meet with the president and behind closed doors, and pointed out how EU proposals to distribute quotas of migrants across EU are eerily familiar to Soros' own self-published plan for dealing with the crisis. This is George Soros, okay? Opinion, George Soros, here's my plan to solve the asylum chaos. He started it. And he has this human rights thing and blah, blah, blah. And he says, drop this link in there for them if you can. I don't know if you can, but people need to know what's going on. First, the EU has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually for the foreseeable future. And to do that, it must share the burden fairly. Adequate financing critical. The EU should provide 15,000 euros per asylum seeker for each of the first 2 years to help cover housing, healthcare, education costs. I mean, seriously, that's $16,800. A lot of people in America barely live on that. Like, and not even having to work for it. They don't even, seriously. And to make accepting refugees more appealing to member states, it could raise these funds by issuing long-term bonds, using its largely untapped AAA borrowing capacity.
Yay.
That's what it all comes down to, y'all. Show
banking.
me the Benjamins.
Right. Well, and it's all a lending plan.
It's a lending plan.
The way that...
For those lending plan.
For those of you that don't understand, we think of lending, we think of credit cards.
Right.
They think of it on a much larger scale. These are countries and nations that are lending and borrowing massive amounts of money. And somehow when they borrow the money, then all of a sudden they have all this magical money, okay? And just being borrowed from actually gives you a lot of foothold to kind of sway things.
This whole borrowing doesn't really exist. So they literally make money out of thin air.
So let's say you have $100,
right?
And I need it. Okay, so you lend me $100, and now I have $100, and I can lend out $1,000 based on that $100. Okay, so it's not even a pyramid scheme. It's completely corrupt, and that is why. You guys need to understand, I watched a video the other day on Josh Sigerson's channel where the national debt of the central banks is like 5% away from equaling, worldwide. The worldwide debt of national banks is like 5% away from equaling the actual entire world's GDP. That means that the entire world is like broke.
Right.
It's a house of cards. All of this wealth, it's all fake. It comes from nowhere, and it is about to collapse.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get to this collapse later on. So check that out.
Was that Market Watch?
This is Market Watch. George Soros, here's my plan to solve the asylum chaos. You can just put Market Watch, maybe the date too. It's from May.
All right. So I want to. Horatio had sent me a comment, actually in my messages, so that I wouldn't miss it. The danger is, this is about Catalonia. The danger is not that they'll go communist. It's that Islamic influence could grow and will have a larger influence should the Catalan people choose independence.
Interesting. All right, for the Hungarian government, claims about Soros' influence on EU migration policy, which once sounded like a conspiracy theory, should be seen in a new light with the emergence of the Open Society documents, which list key players in the European institutions that can be counted on as trustworthy allies of the financial speculators' goals. The musket is not only prime but loaded, noted Prime Minister Viktor Orban on October 27th. In Europe, in the future, a permanent and mandatory migrant relocation quota mechanism will be established with no upper limits on the numbers. So it's all about the money and this aid being borrowed in. And anytime you see a government saying borrow money, it's literally creating money for the banks and the global elites.
Thank you. You just summed up what I was trying to say that I flubbed earlier. Whenever you hear somebody say borrow money, they want to create money in order to make more money, in order to invent it, because there's not enough. Because you have to have somebody borrow that money, and literally They lend out money that comes from nothing.
Nothing.
It's like a magician.
They flood the system. It's like, okay.
So the only way to put more fake money into the system is to have people borrow it. And
because
that is what I was trying to say.
The global elite's dollars are being watered down at a rate that's less than us.
Right.
But they still need more, right? So in order for them to have more, they have to keep printing more, which waters down our buying power is lower than it's ever been.
Yes.
Okay, so, but in Hungary, one leading party member says there will be no mosques. I'm not even kidding you. He says the leader of the Fidesz parliamentary group, Gregory Gulas, said in a TV interview that there will be no mosques in the country. He made this statement after questions on Hungarian national TV about the New York terror attack. Gulyás is an important member of the Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Fidesz party. Here, he said, here for example, and we'll play it. This is after the bicyclists were hit by a rented truck. But one thing is shown by this latest tragic terrorist attack, the New York truck jihad, wherever radical Islam find its way in and is allowed to settle, such events could occur at any time, at any moment. And now, when Europe is in the middle of such a conquest, their emphasis on freedom of religion, let's make it clear. Nobody wants to limit the individual freedom of religion, but to make it communal. In the case of Islam, national security issues must be considered, because if someone is not doing that, then they can just make regretful statements about radicalization, and many such large terror attacks could happen. And the fact that the Islamic State is losing in the present war will make the situation worse, not better. Because their soldiers will be coming to fight here. Yes, but then I will bring up the question. I do not want to put you on the spot. So if you could say you want to pass, where the mosques are, there is trouble. That is correct. So in Hungary, there will be no mosques. This is how we will react to this. There will be some initiatives to build mosques. We must clearly say that in this situation, concerning our safety, it would have a negative consequence. We are sorry if someone is the loser of this situation, but we can't change our point of view, because this is not only a case of religious freedom, but a question of a nation's safety. And yes, let's say we see it in all of Western Europe and the United States, as was proven with this crazy Uzbek, and in Western Europe has the same situation, with which the intelligence services have been talking about for years. They know very well which mosque, which imam radicalized the young Muslims. In Germany, the terrorist attack last December was exactly about that. What do you think?
Powerful.
Tell me what you think in the comments.
Somebody says, bravo, Hungary. I gotta tell you, when I hear that guy say that, he's like, listen, I'm sorry if somebody's going to be the loser in this situation, but for our safety right now, this is what has to be. And I'm not in Hungary, but I support that stance for them.
Yeah, I do too. I was actually trying to bring up...
Mosques are a house of illegal arms, says Britt Baza. Hungary kicked out Soros, too. Religious armories.
So I'm going to just... Okay. I wanted to show you this. This is a hidden camera that shows streets blocked by huge crowds of Muslims in Paris. Now,
I can't imagine if this happened on our streets.
Actually, there is a imam who I follow on Twitter who said that basically in the Quran, unless you own the land, or you know the people who own the land, or you have rights to the land, Allah won't hear your prayers if you bow down and pray. And that there is absolutely no reason to pray in the streets. It is a form of conquest. And that is from a Muslim imam on Twitter.
Really?
Yeah, I'll bring that up, but I want to show you this first.
This is a Friday in Paris, filmed by hidden camera. The streets are blocked by a huge crowd of Muslim worshippers, and it's enforced by private security. This is all illegal in France. The public worship, the blocked streets, and the private security. But the police have been ordered not to intervene. It shows that even though some in the French government want to get tough with the Muslims and ban the burqa, other parts of the French government...
You have to ban this burqa thing. I hate it. I hate that they... It's not a religious thing. Okay, we've talked about it. It's not safe to drive. It's not safe to walk.
Well, they can't drive
if
in
you
some
can only
countries, so.
see. Anyways, no one knows who these people are. When you're covering your face and your eyes...
a criminal.
This is a human rights walking violation.
Government continue to give Islam privileged status. An ordinary French citizen who was watching the Islamization of Paris decided that the world needed to see what was happening to his city. So he bought a hidden camera and started posting the videos on YouTube. His life has been threatened, and so we're concealing his identity. He uses the alias of Maxime Lepont.
They are blocking the streets with the barriers.
Wow.
They are praying on the ground, and the inhabitants of this district cannot leave their home nor go into their home during those prayers. The Muslims who are
Now, I want to take a second and imagine if a bunch of Christians went to Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Iran and blocked their streets, yelling, "Jesus is Lord! Jesus is Lord! Jesus is Lord!" over and over and over again.
I would be proud of those Christians.
over the streets do not have any authorization.
Because they were all about to die.
They do not go to the police headquarters, so it's completely illegal.
These Muslims have been granted unofficial rights that no Christian group is likely to get under France's laïcité or secularism law.
Oh yeah. Imagine if Christians just walked the streets in just France or Paris alone.
Right.
So it says people have the right to share any belief they want, any religion, but they have to practice at home or in the mosque, synagogues, churches, and so on.
Some say these Muslims must pray in the street because they need a larger mosque, but Maxime has observed cars coming from other parts of Paris, and he believes it's a weekly display of Muslim power.
They are coming there to show that they can take over some French streets, to show that they can conquer a part of the French territory.
If France faces an Islamic future, it took a Russian to write about it. It's the best-selling novel, The Mosque of Notre Dame, 2048, a bestseller in Russia, not in France. The French publisher, Jean Robin, says the French media ignored the book for being politically incorrect.
So Islam is seen as the religion of the poor people. And so you can't say to the poor people, you're wrong, otherwise you're a fascist. That's how it goes.
The book lays out a dark future when France has become a Muslim nation and the famous cathedral has been turned into a mosque. Whether that plot is far-fetched depends on whom you ask. Muslims are said to be no more than 10% of the French population, although no one knows for sure because French law prohibits population counts by religion. But the birth rate for Muslims is significantly higher than for native French. Some Muslim men are said to practice polygamy, a charge this man faced, in some cases with each extra wife having children and collecting a welfare check.
With Islam, it's not only a problem of numbers. The problem of Islam is a problem of really principles. Is Islam a political ideology or is it just a creed?
French philosopher Radu Stănescu is an Islamic expert who debates Muslim leaders on French TV.
It doesn't matter how many they are. The problem is the people who follow Islam are there somehow in a political party who has a political agenda, which
absolutely,
and that's the key to this entire thing.
Sharia and build an Islamic state.
From the 1980s until just recently, it was a social taboo to criticize or oppose Islam, and so the government and media effectively helped Islam spread throughout the country.
We were expecting Islam to adapt to France. Now it's France adapting itself to Islam.
About the veil, this Muslim says Europeans should respect Muslim dress. This woman says the veil is in the Quran, and we only submit to God, and nobody else. Even if many government elites in France are in denial over Islam, the people in the streets increasingly are not. And they're becoming fed up with what they see as the growing Islamization of this country. They've started staging pork and wine aperitifs or cocktail parties in the street. They're patriotic demonstrations meant to strike back against Islam.
So, you know...
You shouldn't have to do that. This is so sad. You should not have to gather in your streets in the streets of your country And they do, and I'm proud of them for doing it, but it's like, it shouldn't have to be.
Right.
This is absolutely ridiculous. So Sean says, and he's from the UK. Let me get to it. Jeez, you guys go so fast. They are just trying to show that they will do what they want, and the French are letting them do it. This won't end well.
Paris had to cancel their Christmas market, but don't worry, it still holds its Ramadan party every year.
They did what?
In Champs-Élysées, the Champs-Élysées Christmas market in Paris has been canceled by City Hall councilors. It is considered the city's main Christmas market and welcomes 15 million visitors every year. You can get a retreat. According to the spokesperson of the City Hall, the French capital wants to focus on offering visitors and Parisians more attractive and innovative events that will enhance the Champs-Élysées in a culture and aesthetic dimension in keeping with this exceptional site. Since 2008, this market in Paris has been organized by Marcel Champagne, but due to a long-term dispute, the contract was terminated this year. According to the Jean-Francois Martins, deputy mayor of tourism in City Hall, the market wasn't good enough for Paris, but Mr. Champion denies that the market sells poor quality goods. We have a 6-year contract, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to put that out there. That
Paris shut down Christmas, man.
Then Greek police, we're going to Greece real quick. Greek police arrest trafficker with 90 migrants in the truck. In Thessalonica, that's a beautiful biblical name. We know about the Thessalonians. Thessaloniki, Greece. Greek police say they have arrested a trafficker carrying 90 migrants in his truck container. The truck was inspected outside the northern Greek city of Thessaloniki Friday morning. Police announced Saturday. Police arrested the truck driver, a 55-year-old Greek man. The migrants included 21 minors, with more than 60 Iraqis and others from Eritrea, Ethiopia, Congo, and Iran. They had crossed from Turkey and had paid about $2,100 or 1,800 euros. So that is making somebody a lot of dough.
Wow.
Right? Let's see. There was a terror plot, and I just wanted to give you an update. The court remains 7 in custody. Remains 7 in custody in the French-Swiss terror plot. 7 people arrested in a French-Swiss probe have been remanded in custody in France over a plot to stage a terror attack, with 1 more suspect placed under further investigation. They said this Saturday. 9 were detained in France. A 10th, a Colombian woman, was held in Switzerland. So you have, some of these people are 27-year-old Swiss man described as a self-styled imam, tasked with indoctrination, as well as a 65-year-old army veteran and a convert to Islam. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to converts of Islam real quick. And 2 brothers already on an extremist watch list. The so-called imam was in touch with a 13-year-old French teenager accused of planning a jihadist knife attack. Wow. The minor was arrested in June, and the youngest person to face prosecution. So I wanted to bring you an update on that. And then I wanted to go to Austria, where migrants in Vienna receive more money than working class pensioners. And this is kind of a daily thing that everyone is facing. I told you about in the UK, Syrian refugees are demanding more. It's not good enough there. Recently, Austria's finance minister, Hans-Jörg Schelling, admitted that refugees or migrants are costing the nation $1.8 billion on a yearly basis. That's almost the same budget as that of the country's national army.
Wow.
To check Austria's migrant costs, we did some calculations. Since 2015, Austria has taken around 150,000 migrants. Each one receives between 500 and 900 pounds each month, euros, for basic care. Taking 600 euros as an average on the lower scale, this leads to a minimum cost of about 7,000 euros a year. Multiplying the number of migrants, you get 1 billion annually. So I wanted to bring that up. And we're in Austria. I also wanted to just give you this link here where actually people are saying no to any more Islamation. A couple more updates. There was a Moroccan tried to drive a rented car into a crowd in Berlin. Luckily, they were able to get out of the way. The man fled and is still at large. Wow. This is an article from Berlin, translated, Google Translate. There was a Moroccan who drove onto the sidewalk and rammed a scooter park there, and he was able to get away. Another update, do you remember the football The Dortmund football team was bombed. The bus, and this man will face trial in December. A German-Russian man accused of carrying a bomb attack on the Borussia Dortmund's team bus will go on trial December 21st. He's 28 years old and charged with 28 counts of attempted murder. And we have one more update. Warzone Brussels, Christmas market, stores and cars destroyed after Moroccan football match. Brussels turned into a war zone after a World Cup qualification match between the football teams of Morocco and the Ivory Coast. The successful qualification of Morocco for next year's World Cup in Russia started as a party on one of Brussels' main streets yesterday evening. Rioting began after 300 people decided to damage cars and destroy a Christmas market.
Who decides to do that?
Migrants. The anarchy spread through Brussels after riot police interventions. Cars were set on fire, shops were destroyed, and people started plundering. According to the Berlin media, 22 police officers were injured during the riots. No one has actually been arrested because that is the state of our awesome police forces across the world. And that's just as a thing here, just burning cars. They're doing it. Bombings in Sweden. The bombings in Sweden just keep happening. I don't know how many. I'll just keep telling you. There's more bombings in Sweden. More bombings. They're blowing things up. They're blowing cars up. They're putting, mattresses or something in the street.
And the goal behind it is to create a constant state of chaos. That's what you do. It's part of enemy warfare. It's what you do to make people afraid. To constantly keep them in a state of fear, that you have this power over them, to create chaos, to create fear. That is what they are doing. It's classic. They know what they're doing, and it is to create their Islamic State, to create their no-go zones. Don't come into our area. We own it. We're going to have our laws.
So I'm going to cover this last story from the UK, and then we're going to hit
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia and the craziness going on there. And then we have something special for you at the end.
Yes.
Right? So
you're going to want to stay to the end today.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Fast forward to the end, something kind of fun. After all this craziness, right? School sets homework making pupils write to family about their conversion to Islam. This is a thing. I've heard about it before. It's come out again. A father refused to allow his 12-year-old daughter to do a school homework assignment said to be in line with the national curriculum, asking her to write a letter to her family telling them she had converted to Islam.
I'm down with this.
McLachlan, 42, from northeast of England, said he did not mind his stepdaughter learning about other faiths, but argued the project was inappropriate, as it was a parent's choice about what values they raise their children with. The stepfather found the assignment in his daughter's school planner and posted an image online of it stating that he was furious and would be visiting the school. I'm going to show you this. Okay. Google Classroom/RE, write a letter to family about converting to Islam. I'm not making this up. This is part of the national curriculum in the UK, where children have to write a letter to their parents that they have converted to Islam.
Now,
share your thoughts.
Psychological warfare, because when you have it's like Stockholm syndrome, where you identify with your captor, or whatever they call it. This is what they're asking these kids to do. Put yourself in their shoes. What if you had to tell your family that you were converting to Islam? And then you start to think about that. In all honesty, I'm like, we should try this with Christianity. Right. Tell the kids. You have to write a letter. Listen, Mom and Dad, I've decided Jesus Christ is my Savior. He's come into my life.
But see,
my life is completely different now. I'm like, this could work.
But you know what? The difference is that converting to Christianity and converting to Islam are two very different things. And we have to call this out, because if you're in a Christian country and you convert to Christianity, nothing changes in your life. You may stop drinking or partying or sleeping around.
Right.
You may start going to church or something like that. But your life, by and large, is all the same. When one converts to Islam, they convert to a separate ideology and political belief system.
Right.
They submit to Sharia law, telling them what to wear, where to go. I mean, it's like if somebody had come and say, I'm going to be Amish. I mean, it's that huge. It's not the same thing. I mean, but my point, there's differences, but it's that big of a life change.
Patriot Gallery.
I think a big difference is when you're doing that, you're telling a child to submit to a pedophile. Muhammad is a pedophile. The Islamic religion came from a pedophile.
Right.
Jesus Christ is not a known confessing pedophile.
Right.
So this is absolutely insane. You cannot have a child learn this religion or have anything to do with it. They don't have to. It's like submitting to an abuser.
Right.
This person wants to abuse these children. You should teach your children to stand up to abuse.
Right, and the punchline here, if I may give it, was they didn't quite exactly tell the children to write this letter and inform them that if they ever wanted to leave this religion, they would be killed.
Absolutely.
So they forgot to tell that part in the... so I would like to see the letter of the child that says, Dear Mother and Father, I am leaving Islam. I know you're going to have me killed. I know I'm going to die. This is the end of my life because if I leave this religion, I get killed.
That is, you know what? I can just stop this here because you're so right. I want every Islamic child
to have to write the letter.
To write a letter imagining that they are leaving Islam and give it to all of their parents and say, this is an assignment, it's make-believe, but I had to imagine that and see, I need to hear your response to what would happen to me if I left Islam altogether. What if I became a Christian? Right. What if I loved, and we have heard, you do not see Christians on Twitter saying, with, in the back corner, with blacked out thing, with their voice changed, saying, I am an ex-Christian, and I'm afraid for my life. I love Christianity.
Now, you do hear that with some Mormons or Amish or other cult-like religions.
People who do leave, like Amish or something, they're shunned, but they're not killed.
You're right, but sometimes with there are cult religions, right, where people come out from them, and they are based on Christianity, right? Mm-hmm. So-called, very loose term there. But what I'm saying is that lends to Islam being like a cult,
right? Exactly,
because it's usually the cult type religions that have that the person needs to fear for their lives or their safety or whatever.
Okay, so while this is an update, the Zero Hedge actually hosted an article written about the Saudis, and that we're going to hit on right now. This is huge, and I don't know if, because we've actually been going for an hour and 39 minutes.
31
minutes, an hour and a half. Okay, so we'll do a 2-hour program. This is really deep, so I'm going to put the articles in the description, because following what's going on in Saudi Arabia right now is like unraveling this giant thread of spool thread, whatever. This is an update, and we're going to go backwards. The Arab League is set to hold an emergency meeting on Iran at Saudi Arabia's request. This according to routers and various regional sources at a moment when Saudi fighter jets may be mobilizing for war in an attempted show of force. Now, to us, we haven't heard much about it in the mainstream media. And the Zero Hedge article that I'm going to bring up, I got goosebumps on me again. This is like a thing. This is kind of a big deal. This is a huge deal. This is huge. Just why I'm bringing this to you. There's a shakeup happening in the Middle East right now, and Saudi Arabia has done more to shake up their country in 1 week than we have ever seen in our lifetimes in an Arab country. My lifetime. I was born in 81, so this is in 1 week. They have arrested a bunch of people. Some people are dead. There's been a bombing, and will there be war with will there be war with Iran? It's craziness going on right now. You have the Saudi Arabian regime aligning with Israel. What is happening? They're mortal enemies. So right now, I'm going to give you the players here because it's a bit tricky. You have Russia kind of aligning with Syria and Iran, and China, but you also have Saudi Arabia pivoting to China too. So we have this because Saudi Arabia needs another place to sell its oil. Mm-hmm. Because in America, we've been fracking at a loss, from what I understand. We're trying to become independent of Saudi oil. The reason, and you guys all know this, but we have to keep telling you this. The reason we let everybody go in 9/11, even though we knew that Saudi Arabia had funded the terrorists, is because since the 70s, when we made the deal, the petrodollar deal, we have had to fund Saudi Arabia and turn away from their abusiveness and their craziness and their Wahhabism.
It's not really as much that we're funding them. We are funding them, but they're funding us.
Yes.
We're in debt to
They're
them.
recycling back their
It's
dollars
like a money laundry.
into our...
It's an oil laundry
Exactly.
system. They have all this oil. They need us, but
Right.
we need them. They buy our debt. They own the United States.
And the
Saudi
United-
Arabia literally owns our entire country.
And so we've been...
that in China.
We've been pivoting. Everybody's been making some pivots. So the latest pivot right here is Iran. The Egypt-based Iran Online also reports further that the meeting will discuss Iranian interference in the region at the League headquarters in Cairo, and other earlier unconfirmed reports indicate the meeting could come as early as Sunday. News of the Arab League extraordinary session comes as tensions are at a breaking point as regional powers, especially Saudi Arabia and Israel, talk war against perceived Iranian expansion and the domination of the Middle East. Now, we've heard this in speeches from President Trump, even listening to the ears of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying, watch out, Iran's going to do this. I'm not going to choose Saudi Arabia over Iran. I'm not choosing Iran over Saudi Arabia. I don't like them either.
When you have a choice between the lesser of two evils, you don't choose either.
This is crazy.
That's simple. Hang on. Mark H says, sorry, I just lost it. Saudi Arabia is a purge. They need the money to feed the peasants and keep them happy. The princes have too much power and too many billions.
Right. Meanwhile, the Daily Star, citing the Baghdad Post, claims that Saudi Arabia has scrambled its air force for strikes in Lebanon. Now, there was a missile that we reported on that was in the air.
Right.
But the Saudi government is saying that Iran is behind this Lebanon missile. Reports now state the Saudi Royal Air Force has placed its warplanes on alert to launch strikes as the region sits on a knife edge. And the report accompanies updated footage of Saudi F-15s in aerial maneuvers over what is presumably in a Saudi airfield. So, sorry. Saudi airplanes shell terrorist Hezbollah. So, let's see. The Daily Star adds the following accompanying the video. The kingdom has mobilized its F-15 fighter jet fleet to launch a military operation against the Iranian-backed terrorist militia of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Regional news website The Baghdad Post reports Saudi Arabia previously accused both Lebanon and Iran of committing an act of war against it after rebels fired a missile at the King Khalid International Airport we talked about in Riyadh.
No, wait, this is just lighten the mood here. Andy Reasoner says feminists should be sent for free for even just 2 months in good hotels to Saudi Arabia. If they will come back alive, they will be alt-right.
I think so.
Get it? Alt-right.
Yeah.
I get it. I like that.
So here's a breakdown. The civil war in Yemen, the Qatar economic blockade and isolation over accusations that it is Iran friendly, the latest civil unrest in Bahrain and the alleged bombing of a major oil pipeline there, ratcheting up tensions with Israel in support of Hezbollah, destabilizing Lebanon itself, leading to PM Saad Harari's resignation. All of this precipitating the Saudi Night of Long Knives is what they're calling it. And so I'm going to bring up this article. Behold the Saudi plunge protection team, where abdication is unthinkable. Saudis denied King Salman will relinquish throne to his throne. Here we go. If the Saudi Arabia situation doesn't worry you, you're not paying attention. This is authored by Chris Martison via thepeakprosperity.com. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to give you an overview, and then you guys can look at it yourself. While turbulent during the best of times, gigantic waves of change are now sweeping across the Middle East. The magnitude is such that the impact on the global price of oil, as well as world markets, is likely to be enormous. A dramatic geopolitical realignment by Saudi Arabia is in full swing this month. It's upending many decades of established strategic relationships among the world's superpowers, and in particular, is throwing the Middle East into turmoil. Like it already hasn't been, but even more so. So much is currently in flux, especially in Saudi Arabia, that nearly anything can happen next, which is precisely why this volatile situation should command our focused attention at this time. Main elements are these: the sudden and intense purging of powerful Saudi insiders, arrests, deaths, and asset seizures, billions of dollars. There are thousands of princes with billions of dollars. They're arresting them. A former ambassador to the United States was recently arrested. I mean, these are high up guys.
Right.
All the big dudes. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, if we started arresting, like, Bill Gates and, the guy who owns Amazon, and, like, that's what this is,
Right.
like, all the big guys. Huge changes.
But didn't you just read asset seizures?
It took all their money.
Right, I know, but like here in the United States, you get arrested. They don't exactly seize your assets.
But they don't
right
need
away.
it because we have a printing press.
I'm just saying.
They have oil and have their printing press. They have to trade
right
in the U.S. dollars, so that's their thing.
I'm just saying it lends itself to, why they're being arrested.
Oh, of course that's why they're arrested.
I'm just saying it's not, for those of you that maybe aren't following, this is not just, there's a bunch of bad guys and they're getting arrested just because they did, it's a money grab. They are stealing from people. I'm sure they're all bad guys. Well, most of them.
They're all bad guys.
It's all about money.
So huge changes in domestic policy and strategy. Interesting. This King Solomon, he has a son who is 32, and he's basically running everything right now. He's behind all this craziness. But he has come out and said, we're going to try to let women drive, which would seem to us like a joke. But it was actually a slap in the face at the Wahhabist hardline imams that he is. It's a civil battle.
Right.
It's a civil war. It has nothing to do with wanting women to drive, by the way, or caring about females. Huge changes in domestic policy, that's what I'm talking about. Strategy, a shift away from the U.S. in all respects, which is very interesting for them, politically, financially, and militarily. They are deepening ties to China, and a surprising turn towards Russia, economically and militarily, increasing cooperation and alignment with Israel. The enemy of my friend. Taken together, this is tectonic change happening at blazing speed. That it's receiving too little attention in the U.S. press, given the implications, is a tip-off at just how big of a deal this is. This should be on headline news all the time, all day.
Well, it's like the game of war. And so I know Leah gives you guys the facts, and then I just kind of comment on them. But to me, when I'm envisioning this, as it's saying it's making moves towards China and Russia, you really do need to see this kind of like Battleship, or however you want to. What was the game that we played when we were kids and I was not any good at it? Well, they really never let me play at Christmas.
I don't remember.
At Grandma and Grandpa's house. What was that game? They always played it. Troy played it.
I never played it then.
What was... I know, but like they played it. It was a big deal. What is it? Rumsiggy? What? Oh my gosh. Rummage? Scrummage. Shoot. Anyway, there's this military game that they would play. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I didn't get to play it.
Well, but they played it, and we were allowed to watch. My point is, we're watching players on a game board shift, okay, against the United States. So they're making these new allies. So the fact that Saudi Arabia is shifting from the United States, I'm going to tell you what I think it means. I think it means that they see the economic collapse of the United States as imminent and soon, and they are getting out while the getting is good and going to the countries that still have all of their financial affairs in order. Okay, because when the dollar does fall, when the petrodollar does fall, and guys, it is going to fall. We are going to have economic collapse. The question is going to be, how bad is it going to be? When that happens, Saudi Arabia wants to be on the other team.
And the punchline to this article, and I guess I'm going to get to the punchline, it says...
was it Stratego?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Baker Mom gets a cookie.
Yeah,
I never... She said that. That's my... Yeah, you get a cookie, Baker Mom. I like it. Very good. Thank you.
But they had a punchline. I don't know if it's at the bottom or not, but basically something is going to go crazy within the end of, everybody always says this in a year out, but at the end of 2018 to the end of 2019, I'm seeing something. I am seeing something this time. Like, I'm seeing it. I'm not prophesying this. This isn't like some end of the world thing. I mean, like, I can put two and two together, and it equals that this whole thing, this whole house of cards is falling down.
To me, it feels like a cleansing. sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's a necessary thing that has to happen.
Right.
So I'm not afraid. I'm not scared.
Right.
I ain't scared. But that's because we rely on God. All right. And I do know that God is moving and changing things. But on a global scale, when you see pieces move this fast, kind of abruptly, something is going on underneath. The globalists are scared. They are running. There are reasons that we should be excited about this as well.
Everything in our nation kind of pivots on Saudi Arabia, and it has for a while, for the past 30 years. So if Saudi Arabia is pivoting, then our whole country pivots. You don't see it,
right?
You don't feel it,
right?
But you're going to feel the effects of this pivot sooner than later.
Patriot Gallery.
The paper dollar was started by criminals, and this crypto was started by criminals in the black market. The cryptocurrency has been used by criminals to pass drugs and all kinds of other stuff to get around state laws and money laundering and all this other stuff. So don't trust your crypto either. Criminals started that. It's another fiat. It came out of thin air.
Exactly.
It's not real. And gold and silver are real because God says it's real. Gold and silver are real because our founding fathers, who are very godly men and honest men, will tell you gold and silver through history has always been money. Gold and silver is the only thing that's real money worldwide.
Right, exactly. So just to kind of give you an overview, when we're talking about the House of Saud, imagine that your own family, if you think your family is nuts, multiply that by a factor of 1,000, and then sprinkle in a willingness to kill any family members who get in your way, and you will have the right perspective for grasping how Saudi politics work. Okay? Remember, Saudi Arabia was actually kind of created rather recently in the early 1900s when Saudi Arabia, the Sauds, went and annexed some more territory, and then the British government recognized it. All the Middle East has kind of been set up by, Britain, basically. But you have here a really kind of chart. You got the House of Saud, and then you have Muhammad, and another Abdallah, and another dude, and now we're down. We had King Abdallah here from 2005 to 2015. Now we've got Solomon here. Everybody shares the same stinking name. The current leader, King Solomon, and his powerful son, Mohammed bin Salman, age 32, shortly. I think they do that just to mess with our heads.
Yeah.
So the key of this article is the oil for money protection deal struck between Nixon and King Faisal in the early 70s. This pivotal agreement allowed the King Solomon to secretly recycle its, or the KSA. What was that again? Sorry, I'm having a hard time following everything here. They call that something. Anyways, allowed the KSA to recycle the money. Where am I at? Recycle surplus petrodollars back into U.S. treasuries while receiving U.S. military protection in exchange. The secret was kept for 41 years, even though everybody talked about it. But in 2016, due to a Bloomberg FOIA request, we found out for sure. The basic framework was strikingly simple. The U.S. would buy oil from Saudi Arabia and provide the kingdom military aid and equipment. In return, the Saudis would plow billions of their petrodollar revenue back into the treasuries and finance America's spending. It took several discrete follow-up meetings to iron out all the details, Parsky said, but at the end of months of negotiations, there remained one small yet crucial catch. King Faisal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud demanded the country's treasury purchases stay strictly secret, according to a diplomatic cable obtained by Bloomberg from the National Archives database. Buying bonds and all that was a strategy to recycle petrodollars back into the United States, but politically it's always been an ambiguous, constrained relationship. The essence of this deal is pretty simple. KSA wanted to be able to sell its oil to its then largest buyer, the USA, while also having a safe place to park the funds, plus receive military protection to boot. But it didn't want anybody else, especially its Arab neighbors, to know that it was partnering so intimately with the U.S., who in turn would be supporting Israel. That would have been politically incendiary in the Middle East region, coming as it did on the heels of the Yom Kippur War in 1973. As for the U.S., it got the oil it wanted and double bonus time here, got KSA to recycle the very same dollars used back used to buy that oil back into the treasuries and contracts for U.S. military equipment and training. Sweet deal. Note that this is yet another secret world-shaping deal successfully kept out of the media for 4 decades. Yes, Virginia, conspiracies do happen. Since the key deal was struck back in the early 90s, the KSA has remained a steadfast supporter of the U.S. and vice versa. In return, the U.S. has never said anything substantive about KSA's alleged involvement in the 9/11 or its grotesque human and women's rights violations, not a peep until recently. Then things started to break down. In 2015, King Salman came to power. Things began to change pretty quickly, especially once he elevated his son, Mohammed bin Salman, to a position of greater power. Among MBS's, Mohammed bin Salman's first act was to directly involve KSA into a Yemen civil war with both troops on the ground and aerial bombings. That war has also killed thousands of civilians while creating a humanitarian crisis that includes the largest modern-day outbreak of cholera, which is decimating highly populated areas. The conflict, which is considered a proxy war because Iran is backing the Houthi rebels while KSA is backing the Yemeni government, continues to this day. This is really confusing. It's a lot to take in. But I do know that in 2016, KSA threatened to dump $750 billion in stated U.S. assets in response to a bill in Congress that would have released sensitive information implicating Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. Then President Obama had to fly over there to smooth things out. It seems his job was insufficient because the KSA-U.S. relations unraveled at an accelerating pace afterwards. Mission not accomplished, it would seem. In 2017, KSA accused Qatar of nefarious acts and made extraordinary demands that an outbreak of war nearly broke over the dispute. So you have all these different players, and they're all fighting. And our most recent fight we have is U.S., Israel, Saudi Arabia, in Syria, with Iran and Syria, and then you had Russia come in. So they wanted to make Syria, and this is the one war that we have covered more extensively than others, so we know more about it, so we can actually use this framework to go backwards with what has happened in Yemen and things like that. But when we look at Syria, everything changed. And I want to make this clear because this is so pertinent, so exciting. The globalists in their global war of Stratego, they are flummoxed because this was open and shut.
Right.
They had the chemical weapons. Assad was wicked and evil.
But they didn't count on the Syrian people.
They didn't count on Syrian people, Trump being elected, Twitter, and Russia.
Right.
There was everything had to come together to defeat the globalists here.
Right.
Russia came in and started fighting against ISIS and Hezbollah. Saudi government backs terrorists in all these places.
Everywhere.
We had to work with Saudi Arabia and Syria. And our way to do that was to say that Bashar used chemical weapons because it's okay to use any other weapon against people, but chemical weapons. And it's kind of like with Roy Moore, they do the one thing that you can't get over, and that is child molestation.
Right.
Okay. And so that's what they accused him of. So they went and tried to accuse
Syria
and Assad
of chemical weapons against children.
Because that is the one thing they could just say, they could pivot on and do whatever they wanted.
Right.
Kill children themselves.
Right. They do kill children themselves.
And displace people and do crazy things. So,
dogs.
When I think about Trump being elected, everyone should be grateful that Trump was elected because even though he didn't take as hard of a line for Syria and for Russia as we would like, the globalists are working overtime because they wanted to they knew that Russia was their only barrier to taking out Syria. They know that Russia is a barrier to a lot of things. I don't think that Russia's like super awesome, even though I love Russia. I love the Russian people, and Putin I think is like right now he is in a world, in a game of crazy leaders, he is, I would choose the lesser of evils. I like Putin. I like this guy. I do. Has always been awesome? No, but now is he good? He's better than everybody else. Everybody else. On the major plane. So by Trump being elected, Hillary was not elected. And so Syria
So
had
we
a
didn't
chance.
have an Assad moment where Hillary says, we came.
We saw. He died. If Hillary was elected, Syria would be a failed state with everyone being a refugee.
Right.
And it would be a petrodollar state. And Saudi Arabia would pretty much take over Syria. And that would be it. And Israel would have their way. And I think that we would have a lot of craziness going on. And here's the thing. We can only know what we know. We can only read what we read because they do things in secret.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about Saudi Arabia's Saturday night massacre of their royal dudes, for nearly a century, Saudi Arabia has been ruled by the elders of a royal family that now finds itself effectively controlled by a 32-year-old crown prince, the MBS. He helms the defense ministry, has extravagant plans for economic development, and last week arranged for the arrest of some of the most powerful ministers and princes in the country. A day before the arrests were announced, Houthi tribesmen in Yemen, allied with Iran, Saudi Arabia's regional rival, fired a ballistic missile. The Sauds claimed the missile came from Iran and that its firing might be considered an act of war, which now we're talking about. They kind of are seeing it. Saudi Arabia was created between the two world wars under British guidance. In the 1920s, a tribe known as the Sauds defeated the Hashemites, effectively annexing the exterior parts of Saudi Arabia they did not yet control. The United Kingdom recognized the Sauds' claim shortly thereafter, but since then, the Saudi tribe has been torn by ambition, resentment, and intrigue. The direct attack was undoubtedly met with threats of a coup. Whether one was actually planned didn't matter. Mohammed bin Salman had to assume that these threats were credible since so many interests were under attack. So he struck first, arresting princes and ex-ministers who constituted the Saudi elite. It was a dangerous gamble. The powerful opposition still exists, but that he had no choice but to act. He could either strike as he did Saturday night or allow his enemies to choose the time and the place of attack. Nothing is secure yet, but with this strike, there is a chance he might have bought some time. Now, there's more to this. You can look at all this trade. Now, he's pivoting to China. They sent a giant delegation, and you can know how big it is because they brought 150 cooks to feed them all.
What?
Dude. Oh, and by the way, these princes that were arrested, they didn't go to jail. They cleaned out the entire Ritz-Carlton and put them all in there.
Patriot Gallery.
I was just saying, when you said Putin's a great leader, he's a great leader. He's out there in front. But every country, I've heard great leaders. The Prime Minister of Poland is a great leader.
Absolutely.
Hungary, that's a great leader. There were some Irish people who were in Parliament speaking, and there was a girl, and she was a great leader because the great leaders talk about the welfare and the good of the people.
Right.
And say the people need this, people need that. And I wanted you guys to speak maybe about the churches this weekend. I bet you there wasn't a church in America that didn't have a gun. Christians aren't stupid. If somebody attacks us, we will defend ourselves. And people around the world have to have this idea that you have to have equal weapons against your enemies, and you have to label your enemies enemies.
Right. Absolutely. To sum this up, Saudi Arabia sent this huge delegation to China. Because China is the second largest consumer of oil besides America, and so Saudi Arabia is pushing itself towards China, and they're becoming friends. And if this doesn't scare you, if that doesn't get you maybe into some prepping modes, then I don't know really what will.
Tell them, expound a little bit on what Mom was talking about people going to church defending themselves.
Yeah,
or being prepared to, I should say.
After the church shooting, a lot of churches posted outside of their churches, this is not a gun-free zone. And it's okay to protect your family.
Right.
It's okay to protect innocent civilians. It's okay to protect your church. And so I suggest that if you're in a country that allows you to carry a weapon and you are a good citizen, then you should carry a weapon, or make sure that if you're in a place where there's a lot of people, that there are weapons available, and that churches should definitely have a trusted deacon. I know there are several...
like not have like a security guard that's armed, in the church.
There are several churches in the Cincinnati area that the pastor wears a gun, and he encourages the people in his congregation to wear a gun. And none of those guns have ever accidentally gone off. You know? So I encourage people to be aware of their surroundings, and I think it's unfortunate that the gun ban or whatever in the UK is so harsh, because before they started banning the guns, you guys didn't have these attacks.
Right.
Imagine if people had concealed carry permits. Imagine if they saw a truck going down the road and they just bam. New York City, guns are banned. You can't conceal carry in New York City. You can't conceal carry in Chicago. You can't conceal carry in Baltimore.
Right.
These are cities with the highest amount of gun violence. And guess what? The cops aren't always going to be there. You know, and what's so funny about these liberals who hate cops so much, they rely on the cops to take down the bad guys.
Right.
And it boggles my mind.
Exactly.
So, it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to take care of your family. It's okay to protect yourself. And,
so, all right, guys, that wraps up our world coverage. However, we told you we had something at the end. I cannot believe we're pushing 2 hours here. Thank you for sticking with us. We still have 116 of you loyal people with us. We love you all. So in the history here, go to the history. We have some viewers, Sean and Tracy from Ippolit's.
Did you play it?
I did just now.
Is it this one? Isn't this is introducing?
I know, but I want to give them the accent that they actually have. Okay. They sent us this amazing video with their showing us their church.
Hello.
Well, this is their fake
You're
posh.
right, we do speak very posh.
Now skip to their actual accent.
Yes, that we don't talk like that all the time.
No, we don't. Forget that.
So this is.
It hurts your throat talking like that, doesn't it?
So this is the little lane.
All right, so pause that. Now, Sean and Tracy, they're amazing. They did this video for us just to kind of put a face to the name. You know, we've been watching them in the comment section forever. So they did that video and we had a blast. Then they did another video for us. Now, they did
Are you
it
just going to play it
in response to, I was going to, but then I thought it's better if we have the reaction of us. You won't be able to hear it if I play it on here.
That's okay.
No, go
I've
ahead and
heard
play
it
it in the
like 3
background.
times. Okay.
But before you do, I want you to play, let me put this in the history. Let me go ahead and pull this up. We did this video, I don't even know when. The Resistance Chicks Accent Challenge. Many of you have seen this. Okay, in February. Resistance Chicks had been launched for a whole month and a half when we did this video. Go ahead. Go to the history. Pull it up. Or just Google it with the Resistance Chicks Accent Challenge right in here. Is it froze? There it is. All right. We were in the Jeep and we just decided to give, because we had a big influx of UK viewers, what some Southern accents
Kansas, who has pretty much rebuilt this car. Yeah, Jeep. Junk car or car? Can you believe you did that? I'm sorry. What's wrong with you? All right, so as many of y'all have, we just love y'all from the UK. I just love you so stinking much. Stinking. All y'all's cheeks. But here's the thing. I can't for the life of me figure out how to do a different British accent. I have listened and I can't. Listen, when you grow up watching the BBC and Masterpiece Theater and Mary Poppins and My Fair Lady, I mean, that's the accent that I got. Many of y'all people came to us and said, well, your accent's pretty good, but it's about 70 years too late. And I'm thinking, it's probably a couple 100 years too late based on all the stuff they got us watching on Masterpiece Theater. Oh my God.
Okay, pause
every
that.
Jane Austen recreation that y'all made.
Pause it. Now, I'm wearing the same bow. So they decided to do their very own redneck. It was a challenge. We wanted to hear from y'all just what a redneck accent sounds like from the UK. So they accepted that challenge. And here, let me drop this into the history here. Wait a minute. Let me find where I had it. Almost there. Wait for it. All right. Wait a minute. Open it up here. Okay, it should be in history now.
Try it one more time.
Okay. Oh, they're gonna hear it because all right. I have seen this so many times. I've watched it at least like a dozen times. It says they are amazing.
Howdy, y'all. Let's say it's well. Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, y'all.
We want to do a little video response to the above video. You know, they had redneck accent challenge for UK viewers. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. I'm sure I'm not.
So good,
I'm
Sean.
miles off, but I'm going to try my best anyway, and Tracy's going to do a bit of a Southern Belle, too. Okay, so I just want to start with a little tale. I want to tell you something that happened the other night.
That one?
It was Halloween, and I was sitting out there on the porch, and I was sitting there drinking my Pepsi Cherry Max, and eating my potato chips, because I don't eat crisps no more. I eat potato chips.
They're chips.
Some of them, they're trick-or-treaters. They come around and they come on my property and they start saying trick-or-treat. Well, I gave them a treat, all right. I got out my shotgun and I proceeded to lock them on. And I pointed at the little treaters. They soon ran, I'll tell you. They ran out of there, off my property. I said, get out of here. Get out. Don't want you around here no more. So in the way of celebration, what I did was I sat there and I said to the wife, I said, Tracy, reach me a root beer out that cool box there so I can drink and I can sit there and I can feel satisfied and get rid of trick-or-treaters because Halloween's bad. You know that.
Maybe so.
No.
Y'all finished now.
Oh, wow. Just for now.
No.
Just for now.
No.
So
It's gotta be
we
that
were
one.
watching your video, and so we're trying real hard to do this whole video with an American accent.
I can't get rid of that light on Tracy's face. Sorry.
Okay,
You got to get more specific. There's no such thing as an American accent.
So we were watching, and we saw you doing the redneck hick video, and you also said that you do the Southern Belle, and with the Southern Belle, you have to make sure you're happy all the time. Well, I know I'm always happy, so I reckon I can do that.
I'm smiling because I'm so happy because
You got the way. Make sure you're not.
she's my pretty little angel and she's with me all the time, you know. So it's so good for me.
Okay, that's a surprise.
I just love those grits and potatoes you make up for me all the time.
And the pancakes.
Oh man, the pancakes.
You know what he sounds like? He sounds like something from Charlotte O'Hara's.
The other day,
You
the other
know,
day when the sheriff came around.
reminds me
Sheriff
of
came around and
really
there was
like a
his
southern
radio went off at the
accent.
time we were here and it said, Sheriff, Mrs. Pierce is now on the phone, said the dog's been foaming off at the mouth, so she likes it in the shed. Wonder if you'd like to come over and shoot it for her. She only come around and talk to me about pointing my gun at trick-or-treaters, you know, something like that. Wasn't really paying much attention.
Look, Tracy can't even hold it together.
I don't know how long I can keep this up.
Sure you can, honey.
You guys are pretty
I was
good.
fixing to take the wife out to the movies tonight as well.
Really?
Really? You not know that?
No.
This is it. We're making the movie. We're not going to watch one. We're making one.
Okay.
You can't have it both ways.
No.
I'm not spending $7 on you at the cinema.
Oh, really? I'm not worth $7.
Sean, really? Really?
Bucks.
I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that comes from. I did not slip. It's because we're on vacation, not holiday. We're on vacation.
It's vacation.
In London, England. So we picked up a bit of a local accent around here. You know, like we started calling the game football. You know that game they play? We call it soccer, but the Brits, they call it football. That ball game with the foot. You know the one I mean? But we call it soccer, but they call it football for some strange reason. I don't get that.
Do they kick it with the foot?
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, I get it now.
Whereas in America, football is where you pick it up with your hands. Because that makes sense.
She's so hilarious.
Now, before we sign off, because like I said, we're on vacation.
This one is hard.
Things like sightseeing,
Oh, this is so great.
And it's the 5th of November, so in the UK, there's like this celebration. It's like the Blitz out there at the
Yeah, it
moment.
sounds like, you know, like in 1940 when they were bombing London and all that. But before we go, we want to sing a little song.
It's so great. This is so great.
By our two great friends, Leah and Michelle, all those thousands of miles away.
I'm not sure I can do this.
You sure can, honey. You can. I'll start with the guitar. I'm playing air guitar.
I'd have braided your hair if I'd known.
We're going to sing a wonderful song that's written by Leah and Michelle. But first, before we
I can't.
Wait for it.
It's so great. Wait, watch this.
It's a party.
Are you ready to start?
Oh, my stomach hurts.
Okay.
No, it's so good. It's so great. They haven't printed out.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a cookie cutter princess.
This is one of Leah's
I got
songs.
dirt under my nails.
Under your fingernails.
That's the one.
No,
I'm
it's
not
just
a
nails,
cookie
girlfriend.
cutter princess. I tried to turn the head of all
I
the
don't
men.
try to, but that's all right.
We'll
I'm
try.
not a cookie cutter princess. I got camo hanging in my closet. Yeah. You got a princess. Raise your flag if you know what I mean.
He's really good. Brilliantly, she says.
Leah, I'm sorry I butchered your song.
It went so great.
He just ruined it. I'm real sorry.
Like hitting a deer
Carry on without
on the side of the highway, son.
Dancing.
And next time we're gonna do some British accents.
Yes, please.
Sure will.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
If we can.
Please do.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Now, if I didn't know better, I would think that you were Americans trying to put on a southern accent.
Gosh, oh my gosh,
that was so good. Like that was really, really good. Like I would not have known. But I was trying to. It reminded me of some of the old Southern movies. That.
So for those of you in the chat that are watching, I can point out that Tallulah is Tracy, and Shawnee Show is Sean. So I hope that some of you guys were saying you couldn't hear it well.
Princess. That's been stuck in my head, by the way.
She's been singing it that way now. So under my nails. Sean, you're a really good singer, and you
actually,
two together. The comedy is like. Can you please just do your own comedy channel? We will promote you.
Worth $7.
$7.
Bucks.
And football. I got to tell you.
What would they say? I'm going to take you out to the movies. It's going to cost £7.
Theatre.
To the
theatre.
show.
Go see a show.
See a show at the theatre. It'll cost £7. Yes.
I don't know, but I have seen that so many times, and every time I laugh. We need more Sean and Tracy. It can't just be the Shawnee Show anymore, Sean. It's the Sean and Tracy Show.
You guys need to start.
It has to happen. This has to be a thing. Okay, yes. It is too much fun. We
love all the accents. Seriously, we just
interviewed. Tracy says it's called the cinema.
£7 at the cinema. We love having Horatio on too because his accent is.
This is my face for Horatio. Hasn't been on in a while. Horatio
hasn't made video. Mm-hmm. It's got to be something you can make video on, son.
Oh my gosh! So, thank you, Sean and Tracy. That was like literally my cheeks are hurting from laughing.
Yes.
Oh my
gosh! And that's going to be our song for the day.
So actually, we had to twist Tracy's arm, well, Sean did, to allow us to play this. But not only am I going to play it here, but I am going to drop the link into the description so that you guys can watch that. Because I know this is a little bit dark and Tracy's face has a light on it. We can't figure out where it's coming from.
We are going to go out with what song Britt Bradza wanted us to play?
Britt, what was it? There was a song that you wanted us to learn, and I didn't have time to learn it.
We had a busy week.
It was my birthday, and we've been working. And
yesterday we drove down to Lexington. We were gone all day. Had a good time with our farming friends.
Yes,
our country farming friends. Actually, it was funny because we ended up we were trying to eat at this local pastured pork place. Pastured they pastured beef, chicken, and pork. And they had a satellite little, we thought, restaurant that was not at their main place where they butcher animals, and it was going to be like this cool place. But it was a little farther for us to drive. So we met at this one place, and we ended up in like what I call some sort of, you know what? This is where we ended up.
Oh yeah, you can pull it up. Horatio says there are no politics to talk about. You know what? We don't need politics. You can just come on and talk about like the fact that football it's soccer and all that, things like that, differences. What is this that you're, the circle.
We ended up here eating food here.
Pretty much.
If you haven't seen this movie, this is like super dystopian where all these young millennials, they live, work, eat, and sleep in like a little mini town like this here, okay? It's called the Circle. And basically and they follow everybody around, and it's just like this crazy thing. So when we ended up around all these millennials, and in this place where people literally live, there's apartments, and then all these super fancy like restaurants and stores, and like behind there are
they were sitting in a circle in Adirondack, or how do you call those?
Adirondack chairs
on AstroTurf,
eating popsicles at 20 years old, like
with things that hold, you know, like have you seen that where kids can eat a popsicle with something that holds so it doesn't drip? Adults had those. I'm like, if you're an adult and you can't eat an ice cream cone or a popsicle fast enough so that it doesn't drip, then I don't have words for you. Just don't have. It was so creepy. But the food was delicious where we ate. I can say that. All right, so I have just dropped Sean and Tracy's link into the description.
But it was creepy and felt really weird, and we all felt out of place because we are usually covered in dirt. I think we all kind of dressed a little bit so we blended in, but like I felt like I was walking around with a bunch of...
Although while we were sitting outside because we couldn't eat inside because it was too loud, it was a little bit chilly, but we ate outside anyway. We got into a very detailed discussion of pig and cow castrations. And Kansas, and we were talking about how the fact that we did these bigger pigs a few weeks ago, and it was easier to do them because their testicles were bigger and the little ones are hard to get in there and grab, and we're eating food and talking about all this stuff. And then at the end, our friend, can we say her name? Are we allowed to do that? Yeah. Katie. She says, you know what? One thing is for certain. I'm pretty sure that this table has never heard a conversation of castrations. Pretty sure none of the circle people have ever discussed castrations. So it was very, the whole place was very farmy decorated. There were barn doors. The place that we ate was inside of a building called The Barn, and it was shaped like a barn. And all these people, and like I'm walking around and I like, you know, periodically like, yep, real farmer here. Really do.
There's a giant Whole Foods there, and we're just like, so this is how the upper class buys and affords the organic food.
Yeah, and Katie says, so this is how the other half lives. That's right. I don't like it. It hurts my head. I don't like yuppie people.
Yeah.
Can't stand
if you're a yuppie person, I'm glad that you're watching. But it's hard to be around them. It just is. It's uncomfortable.
All right, so was that it? I thought there was one more thing you needed to bring up. That's it. That's the end?
Well, Britt Braza's song.
Oh, Britt Braza. Yeah, wait, where was it? Did you tell us what the song was in the comments? 1 minute, girls, he says. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I vow to thee my country. Okay, so because it's Armistice Day, this is the song. And because they can never allow us to monetize our videos, I think we can play. Which one would be a good one? Does it matter?
Our second hymn is a patriotic anthem sung to
There we
the
go.
music of
I'm
the
getting very
Struggles.
patriotic to the Brits. There's the Queen.
There's the Prince. He doesn't get to be a king.
Really, the Brits do this kind of thing very well. The pomp, the ceremony. So I can see how it would evoke a really, warm and fuzzy feeling.
It's a beautiful song.
It is beautiful. The love that makes undaunted the final sacrifice.
There's another country I've heard of long ago, most dear to them that love her, most great to them that know.
That's good, Leah.
May not counter on me.
No.
We may not see her dear king.
Sean says, I bet Jeremy Corbyn doesn't know the words to this. Probably not.
I'm trying here. And so by so silently our shining bounds increase, and grace our ways of gentleness, and overpass all peace. totally a Christian song, dude.
Fantastic.
Like, I'm going to tear up. That is so beautiful. That is a hymn about Christianity and love. And this is a whole room full of people. And I know that a good portion of them felt the same thing that we felt listening to it and watching it. And when we talk about all these things, you can pretty much sum up everything into here. Love that is unfailing, that comes from God alone, that helps you not to just love your country, but to love your family. And in that, if you are willing to like sing that song seriously and make it so that like you would love your country so much that you would lay down your life for your country, right? How much more would you love your husband and your wife and your children and your family, that you would love them unfailingly, which means you don't look at porn, which means you don't turn your back on them, which means Sundays for men in America are watching football. And as Alex Jones says all the time, stop watching football. Spend time. You only have 2 days mostly to spend time with your family.
Everyone is so busy.
Spend it loving your family, undyingly loving. If this kind of love were brought back, we can solve all the world's problems, because love is the answer. And it's not a cliche. I'm talking about real, lay down your life love, care, put other people first. These are what we call Christian principles, you guys, where you love your neighbor as yourself. You prefer one another. As Christians, we are to prefer one another and to lift one another up and care for one another. And at the same time, we don't let wicked people into our lives and wicked influences, and we don't let them into our family. This whole hashtag Me Too with all the sexual perversion going out. If you love your family and you know your family, if your kids are abused, they're going to come and tell you, so that you can stop these things, so you can prosecute people, so we can stop abuse and molestation and pedophilia and things like that. So like we can stop evil with love and goodness, and when we're loving one another, we can change the world.
I agree. So I've got a comment here. As a British person on Remembrance Day, I'd also like to tribute to the brave German soldiers who fought bravely. A lot of people give the Germans a bad name, the German soldiers and stuff like that, but you guys, there was a lot of brainwashing that went on. And these were just people that were fighting for what they thought was right. Even they didn't know that they were fighting for an evil regime. You just kind of follow orders. Some of them knew exactly what they were doing. But for those that were innocent, our hearts go out to them.
It all goes back to the Frankfurt schools. It goes back to the early German schools, or where the Prussian schools, the Prussian model of schooling is literally to make children to just brainwash to follow their leaders.
Right, and that's what we have today.
And so as Nigel Farage in the beginning said, they were the highest educated, which meant they were the highest brainwashed to be able to go along with their leaders and what they told them to do. So
all right, so I think that wraps up our very long UK, European, world news. We're almost just gonna have to call it world news.
Well, we
at this point,
yeah.
But it does. But we do try to specialize on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the UK and European news.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Sean and Tracy, for helping to contribute. Thank you guys for all the links that you send us. We really, really appreciate that. I'm not sure. We won't be going live tomorrow, but we will be going live tomorrow. I think we're going to do it live. We are going tomorrow evening, and I want everyone in America that can to go to your local theater that is going to be playing the Genesis movie. It's like genesis3d.com or something like that, Genesis 3D movie. It's a one-night event, but they got a second screening, so they'll do it again on Thursday night. But we're going tomorrow night. We're going to watch the film, and then afterwards we will be doing, from as far as I know, live exit interviews. So we are hoping anybody that's local, feel free to come out to our local theater. I know a lot of you guys get angry that you already know where we live. Our P.O. Box is Milford. The Milford Theater here in Ohio will be playing it. We will be there. If you guys want to come and be a part of the interviews, if you live locally, we'd love to see you guys there.
Convincing lie has prevented billions from knowing the truth. The truth about who they are. The truth about why they're here. And most important. The truth about who created them.
Really, we only have two possibilities. We just happened, or somebody made us.
On November 13th and 16th,
I was really taught that there was a big bang. There was millions of years. Man slowly evolved.
Evolution has a lot of unintended consequences that I'm not sure everyone's thought about.
You have no meaning. There's no reason for you to exist.
When you start buying into evolution, you've opened a door to say you don't have to trust the Bible completely.
Evolution in millions of years is the greatest myth ever forced on the minds of men.
It's not science versus religion. It's a worldview clash.
explore the evidence. Experience the creation. And discover the truth. Because the truth will set you free.
So,
Paradise Lost.
for those of you that don't know, creationists use the exact same science as evolutionists.
Right.
However, it's the interpretation. Each belief, it is a belief system, requires faith. You
Right.
have to have faith in evolution because there are so many gaps in
Right.
that theory. And that's all it is a theory. Christianity and creation, or you can throw Christianity out of it. We've got Jews that believe in creation, obviously. But the creation theory is, as far as we're concerned, is fact, obviously. But the creation theory has a lot less gaps in it scientifically. The creationists are able to fill in gaps with information that makes so much sense. So if you guys are teetering, you may be a Christian and think, oh, maybe God used evolution to create us. That it doesn't line up with the Bible at all, because evolution is a bunch of death and destruction, so it doesn't line up with Genesis. So you will find a lot of the facts that you've been wondering about. This is one of my absolute favorite subjects, is creation science.
But we don't actually bring you guys. We don't debate creation versus evolution. I let stronger minds than mine, deeper minds than mine do that.
Right.
But I do know that my spirit, when I hear some scientists, some Christian creation scientists say there's undeniable proof when you go to the Grand Canyons and you see the different layers, and evolutionists, they can pretend to try to explain the layers, but they really can't explain the layers. The fact that millions of layers are on top of each other, and then you've got life forms where they're not supposed to be life forms
In different, so they have the
different crusts,
certain dates that they have. They don't line up together at all. It makes no sense. And so I would challenge any of you that believe in evolution to sit down and watch something like the Genesis 3D and see if a couple of your beliefs, because that's all it is, are challenged.
There are a lot of scientists who, as they've come to try to disprove creation, have come to believe in creation. I've heard testimonies.
So many people, they literally, scientists, amazing minds that were evolution believing scientists are like, okay, I'm going to set out and prove that evolution is true, creation is wrong, and then they become a creationist.
Everything in science, if you believe that God created the world, everything we can prove in science actually can be explained through creation.
Yes.
It can't be explained through evolution.
Right.
It can't. Like, everything in science can be explained. The caveat there is the carbon dating, which has been proven to be way off.
Yes.
There are things who have been carbon dated as millions of years that were fossilized in this century.
Yes.
But
according to carbon dating, they are millions of years old, but it's like a can of Coke or something like that. And you're like, well, obviously your carbon dating is wrong. It's not millions of years old.
Exactly. There are things that have been found, like, the one thing that people don't like to, there's a human footprint around a dinosaur footprint that was found in, like, Texas.
It was fossilized.
There are just little things like that kind of make my brain go, oh, wow. And like there are scientific theories that go around and around. Christian creationists, they have scientific theories, like a firmament and a flood dropping and a certain element in the sky. I mean, a lot of these makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of these things makes a lot of sense. And so I know that God created the earth. I already know that. I can see him is evidence in creation. Like I can see him in the trees. Right. I can see him. I can feel him.
The Bible says that the very rocks cry out.
Right. And another little interesting thing is that pretty much all ancient societies have an Adam and Eve story, and they also have
a worldwide flood
story. Every little people group, the Indians, the Native Americans, the real Indians in India, in all their different religions, they have like an Adam and Eve, and they have a flood. So, who's to say that the Jews passed down the right story? Well, I just believe it. I can feel it. I can sense it. It makes sense to me that they wrote down the right story.
So this has been a long time in coming, and we are very excited about it. So I'm hoping that you guys will go to your theaters. You can buy tickets now, which we were supposed to have done weeks ago, and Leah still hasn't done it because I want to make sure, obviously, that we have our tickets for tomorrow. We're going to do that as soon as we sign off here. Get your tickets now. If not, you can go again on Thursday. But I want to highly encourage you guys, no matter where you are on the spectrum, to go and watch this film.
Artistic?
They're not artistic.
On the spectrum.
All right, you know what I mean.
So,
like, comment, subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. Ring that bell for notifications. Find us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. We love you. God loves you. God bless. We have a P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio 45150. And remember, it is not just a conspiracy theory.
If it's a truth.
All right, you guys. God bless.
You. God loves you.
And now, somebody had said Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, has been around a lot longer than Armistice Day. So happy Remembrance Day. Leah and I went back and forth on the title. I said, I think it's Remembrance Day. She said, put Armistice Day. So I think I get the cookie. Pat myself on the back. All right. Love you guys.
Bye.
I was called